everybody. This is Bear Truth with Danny Shimon, that good-looking guy wearing the Marines t-shirt, and me, Aldo Gandia. Let's put our names up on the screen there so people can know how to contact us on the Twitter machine. Danny, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Happy holidays, happy Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We took a couple weeks off for the holidays, for the festivities. I couldn't get Aldo away from the bottle, so I we don't have a show, so but it's good to be back. Going into, I can't believe it's our last it's the last week of the NFL season. 17 weeks have flown by. But actually it's to be honest with you, I was telling you the other day, I'm like, watching this team it's been rough. What's up, J-Rock? Man, and then like going towards the tail end of the season, and now that kind of know what's going on, and the Bears putting Matt Nagy out there every week to kind of face the media, which I think is a real PR disaster for that organization. If you're a future possible head coach here, like you gotta get that rectified or resolved, because there's no way he should be out there every week acknowledging these reports, denying the reports. There should be someone within the organization above him, Ryan Pace, Tim McCaskey, or George McCaskey, Ted Phillips. Someone come out and just say, he's our coach for this season. We'll take a look at things at the end of the year, like we do every year, and make a decision from there. Just every week a new rumor, and I feel bad for the guy. It's this point I'm feeling bad for the guy. So.
McMack for the win says, did you read what Jared Payton tweeted about, that no big name coach is coming to the Bears because of Ryan Pace?
Well, I saw that. I saw that what Jared Payton had put out there. I don't believe that, because I think if you're a head coach and you want a shot, there's only 32 of these positions open, right? And the Bears are a team that, and you and I have had the conversation back and forth, although you may not agree with me, but I think this team is not a too far away from rebounding it. It's going to take a good coach with a good coaching staff, some nice acquisitions in terms of free agents, some draft picks, and I think this can go from a potential 7-10 team to a 10-7 team next year. That's how confident I am. They're going to have probably a second or third place schedule, as opposed to a tough schedule they're going to have this year. So if you're a coach and you want to come in but the key is, do you believe in Justin Fields? As going through the whole process, did you have Justin Fields rated high on your evaluation scout sheet or whatnot? So it's all about a coaching staff coming in here, building a nice form of assistants that can go in and teach and get the best out of these players and put them in position to succeed. And I think that with some shrewd acquisition, you're not gonna be far off from contending for a playoff spot. So if you're a potential coach, would you rather have Jacksonville? I know that's a question that comes up all the time. I mean, I know Shad Khan is a good owner. He's got some deep pockets, but I mean, they have talent there as well. But it just seems like it just never materializes. Anything happens in Jacksonville. So why would you want to move your family to Jacksonville and live in Jacksonville? That's the first thing. But so I disagree there. I think even if Ryan Pace is here, I think he will bring in someone that's going to want to work with him. Ryan Pace has been in the NFL for a long time. He's made a lot of friends. So this is all about friendship, guys. And if he knows, and we'll go through the coaching candidates, the guys that I put together on the list later on. But if he knows a guy, that's just throw a name out there. If he knows Josh McDaniels from his days of just scouting on the road, and they have a friendship, who says Josh McDaniels would turn this position down? So I'm just saying that I don't think it's going to be that big of a deterrent as some have made it out to be in the media. That's my opinion.
Well, first of all, I think it's pretty clear who it was that told Jared Payton that. It was John Fox, who was still pissed off about what Ryan Pace did to him. Ryan Pace stabbed him in the back. There's no doubt about it. I mean, one of the reasons on that long list of reasons that I dislike Ryan Pace is what he did to John Fox by not telling him he was drafting Mitchell Trubisky, by hiding that away from him. There was Dan Bernstein and a couple of other Chicago sports radio guys called Ryan Pace a coward, and I couldn't agree more with them. He was afraid to tell John Fox, this is the guy that I like. I like Mitchell Trubisky. He was afraid to tell him that because he knew that John Fox liked Deshaun Watson, and that Fox was going to fight him, and he didn't want that. He wants collaboration. He wants everything to be hunky-dory. And so that is why I think that John Fox told Jarrett Payton that, who then tweeted that. What do you think of that theory?
I don't know, man. You've come up with some theories there. Although I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Fox and Payton have that connection or that have that bond.
Don't have a connection.
But I mean, I don't know. I don't see it that way. I think I just saw where for you, if John Fox, if you are pissed off at Ryan Pace and you thought you got backstabbed by Ryan Pace, your teams were bad on the field. They were bad on the field. They were a poorly coached team. So I just think John Fox was in for his last contract and just kind of took the Bears organization for a ride there and collected his paycheck and walked away. I don't think John Fox really was into coaching the Bears like he had coached Carolina and Denver previous stops. So that's my opinion. But there are, yes, I don't agree with what Ryan Pace did in terms of hiding it from his coach up until the time that I think it was a minute or 2 minutes before the pick was made. Yeah. That's not the way to do it. If you don't have a trust in your head coach, then that's obviously a broken relationship right there. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's the reason why he'd hate him, but
well, I think that, I've been saying this now for most of the season is that the Bears lack synchronicity. You have to hire the GM, the coach, and get the quarterback all at the same time. That's the optimum circumstances of things. So if he knew that John Fox was going to be there just 1 year, he should have fired him after 2 years. He should have just said, hey, Mr. McCaskey, Mr. Phillips, we got to eat this salary because this ain't working. You guys forced him on me. It's not working. And I got a plan is to pick the next quarterback. And I'd like to bring in a head coach who's going to work hand in hand with Mitchell Trubisky, who's the quarterback that I want. This is Pace talking, not me. Is the quarterback that I want. And so I wanted to hire a coach who is going to develop Mitchell Trubisky. I don't think John is going to be here after next season. I'd like to give him another shot. But so my whole point, though, is that this is not the way to build a team where 1 year you bring in a general manager and then the next year he changes the coach after a whole year. That's not the way good businesses run organizations. It's all got to be done in concert, not fucking. This is not a quilt. Excuse my language. Do we swear on the show? I forgot.
Sometimes. Okay. But the thing is, like, you're right, and the Bears have never got it right. The Bears have always seemed like they've always been behind. Like, so they'll bring in a coach and then they'll fire the GM the next year, and then they'll fire the coach and then they'll bring in a whole new, or fire the GM and bring in a whole new coach. It doesn't just. They're never synchronized. They're never on top, and that's because they don't have one guy at the top of the food chain, if you will, the VP of football operations that we've been kind of clamoring about, saying, all right, or even doesn't have to give that big title, just maybe a GM that's got authority over the entire football operation, which supposedly Ryan Pace does. But the problem with Ryan Pace is we only talk to him, or it only comes out like twice a year.
Another reason he's a coward. Go ahead, please.
He should have, and that to me, like the GM should let the coach throughout the season and not interfere, not be, snapping to the media and talking about player movement and playing time and all that stuff. My thing is when situation calls for a GM to come out and make a statement and take a stand, like that Thanksgiving Day report that Matt Nagy was going to be fired after that game. Like that's where Ryan Pace should have come out and said, this is false. He's going to be our coach for the rest of the season. There are certain situations that call for a general manager to come out of his, hiding shell, his cocoon, and make a statement, and then go back to it, because the coach, I agree with the coach, controls the football operation in terms of the football team throughout the week, practice time, and all that stuff. GM should not be diving in and putting in his 2 cents in. Like look at Houston, right? David Culley might be one and done because the rumors out there is Nick Caserio is always on the headset in the coach's ear, talking about scheme, talking about playing time, talking about substituting players in and out. That can't happen. The coach has got a coach and the GM's got a GM. So that's the thing for me is like, if you're John Fox and you're pissed off because Ryan Pace drafted his quarterback and you don't want him, well, you know what? There are opportunities for you to go ahead and coach his player up and make him to a point where he could become successful. But obviously you don't have that type of coaching, staff assembled with, the offensive corner he had running around there on the sidelines.
Marty says that Andy Reid was hired first in Kansas City. Then he brought in Dorsey, then later Veach. So you can hire a coach first. And yeah, Marty, that is absolutely correct. So if the Chicago Bears hire the most expensive head coach out there available, a living legend, Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh is going to want autonomy over the GM. And I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, Jim Harbaugh is not my top choice, but there is a new paradigm in the NFL that the coach and the general manager are equal and they report to the executive vice president. So
I think it happened in Washington with Rivera too. Ron Rivera, he was hired first and then they hired the GM after that.
Yes. And so that's fine. I will accept that because that's a kind of a new business model that has become popular and it seems to work. It's happening in Green Bay. And so I wouldn't have a problem with that. But if you're going to hire a guy who doesn't carry that weight of a Harbaugh, of a Andy Reid, like you mentioned, Marty, then that's not going to work. It's got to be done more the traditional way. And what do you think about what Mr. Mack says here? He says not having any first or second round picks. Do you think a good coach really want to deal with that? Well, first of all, we do have a second round draft pick. And then we don't have a first rounder this upcoming year, but we go back to having a first rounder in 2023. So really the only damage from a draft picks standpoint from the Justin Fields trade is that we don't have a first round draft pick in 2022.
We have a first or a fourth, I believe, and then also I think they traded their seventh away in a different trade. So,
but they do have 2 fifths, and they'll probably get a compensatory pick too, which could be as high as a third, I think.
I haven't seen anything in terms of comp picks, but yeah, you're right. They could get a comp pick here and there. We'll see how that turns out. And you can always trade down and accumulate more picks if you want to. But I don't think the draft plays a big, in terms of draft capital. I don't think it plays a big portion or a big factor into a coaching staff picking, whether to take this job or another job. Now, if you have the first overall pick and you can come in, you can get your franchise quarterback, i.e. Jacksonville, like last year did. Now it's different, right? You can come in, fresh, clean start. You can go pick the quarterback you want, assuming there's a quarterback you want out in the draft. Yeah, but if you're the Bears, I mean, the Bears, if they win this week, they're probably going to have a 10, 11th first round pick. Their pick would be in the first round, would be like 10th or 11th slot. So, and this is not a draft that's in there like in terms of, oh my God, there are all these game changers and all that stuff. So far, early indications are, especially there's no one in the quarterback position that you would want to take early on in this draft. So I don't think that would be a big deterrent. I think what Aldo was talking about in terms of, hey, you have to report to Ryan Pace, but you know what? I'm not liking Ryan Pace. I don't know Ryan Pace. I don't have a relationship with Ryan Pace. Why should I have to report to Ryan Pace? That might be something where, if a coach has an option to go to say another opening, like say Jacksonville right now, that's the only one that's currently open right now. And they say, you know what, you come in. I know they're keeping Trent Baalke there as a GM, but that I think now is on some shaky grounds there as well. So if a big name coach wants to go to Jacksonville and say, I'm coming there, but you're getting rid of that GM, and I'm, we're going to pick a new GM. That might be something that it's going to sway that coach to pick Jacksonville over Chicago, where the Bears are saying, nope, Ryan Pace is here. He's going to be, your boss or whatnot. So I think that more so than draft capital.
One other comment here. Where was it here? Should have started. What do you guys think that the McCaskies or George McCaskey is doing different than before? I think, he's consulting with different people. Like, who was it that said that Tony Dungy has been reported? It seems like Tony says it seems like George might be listening to advisors like Tony Dungy, and Bill Polian is another name that has been mentioned. Now, whether that's true or not, we don't know. One thing that George is good at is not having stuff leak out as to what he's thinking, if he's thinking anything at all. That could be the problem there. But I do think that he knows that this franchise is now in a really critical period. He knows that the franchise has become the laughingstock of the NFL. There are announcers on national TV games mocking the Chicago Bears. There are announcers like the Manning brothers who won't do Chicago Bears games. There are alumni who have actually phoned him and said, this is unacceptable. Most of that criticism has been leveled at Matt Nagy, but some of it also at Ryan Pace. And so weeks and weeks of all this information from George McCaskey. I don't know what he's doing differently, but he'd have to be a royal idiot not to do something differently, right, Danny?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the tea leaves are out there. Everybody can see that there's going to be change, right? The only question is how big of a change is it going to be? How far up is it going to go? Is it going to go all up to like Ted Phillips? Is it going to go up to Ryan Pace, or is it just going to stop at Matt Nagy and the coaching staff? So, if George McCaskey out there doing all this, back channel talks and trying to get all this information, this intel, whether it's Tony Dungy or Bill Polian or whoever, just don't go to Ernie or Corsi. We already saw that didn't work out the first time. Do not go back to Ernie or Corsi, please. But whoever he's talking to, he's got to have something working here. I would assume, right? So that's why I'm thinking if it's gonna be just a coaching change, he wouldn't be out there doing all this stuff. So I think he's kind of putting together a plan, getting some names of people to go ahead and maybe possibly bring into his organization. The rumor is they love Ryan Pace. Ryan Pace was in charge of renovating Hallis Hall and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And they might bump him up into a position. But if you're a guy that failed as a GM, why would you be bumped up to an executive? That just doesn't jive with me. So it's either Ryan Pace is a GM or he's gone. And that's how I see it. And if you're going to keep him as a GM, then do you kind of neuter him, if you will, by his power and just say, you know what, you're going to report to me. You're going to deal directly with just drafting players, and the new coach, I'm going to go out, I'm going to hire, and I'm going to go ahead and he's going to report directly, kind of like the architect that you're, or the model that you're pointing out to, Aldo, where we have two guys that coach and the GM that report up to one guy. So we'll see how that works. But, if he's doing all this work and this has been going on for a while. I mean, we've heard rumors about his out there just asking questions. We've heard Ted Phillips might take a lesser role within the football operations of the team and just kind of concentrate on building that stadium out Arlington Heights. We'll see how that goes. But there are things going here in the background. But the question is, how big of a change is it going to be? Is it going to be all the way up to the GM, to the president, or is it just going to stop at the coaching staff?
Mule Skinner says that he gives credit to Pace for drafting Thomas Graham. Well, it's funny that you say that, Mule, because indeed that is the player that Danny is going to focus on, the rookie cornerback from Oregon. And I'm really excited about this player. Before we get into the tape, Danny, tell me overall what it is you like about this guy, and overall, what does he need to work on?
Well, Thomas Graham, for me, surprised me that he even lasted to the 6th round of last year's draft. Now, coming into last year, he was one of the top-rated cornerbacks on my board. And then obviously he sat out last year due to COVID, but those 3 seasons prior to that at Oregon, the kid was a ball hawk, and he was an aggressive guy that was able to stay in phase downfield, was aggressive at the point of attack in terms of coming up and being a run defender. So I really liked about it. And he's not a really big guy, as you guys can see, but he's a guy that doesn't back down from anybody. He had 32 pass breakups in 3 years at Oregon. He had 8 interceptions. So you see he's got the ball hawk ability to go up there and make plays on the football. So I really like that about him. And then obviously sat out last year. And then I don't know if that's what caused him to drop all the way down to the 6th round. But when the Bears took him in the 6th round, I was ecstatic. I think the Bears had a terrific 6th round of the draft this year. We still got to see some more from Daz Newsome. But I think, him, Newsome, Graham, and then also Khalil Herbert have been, are going to be big contributors to this team going down in the future. So yeah, for me, he was one of my top cornerbacks coming in. I talked about him on last year's Draft on Tap as a guy that if they can get him in the middle of the draft, like I was thinking 3rd or 4th round, the only reason I see him going there is because of that 1 year off. And like I said, size, he wasn't really a guy that I saw playing outside on a regular basis. For me, he's a better off coverage corner, meaning that he's more like a zone corner, a guy that can drop off a little bit and be able to read and diagnose what's going on in the pocket, and then just click his heels, transition quickly, come down and be able to tackle anything in front of him. So and again, those ball skills, be able to get his hands on the football and create tips or pass breakups or even interception. So that's why I saw him, and that's how I saw him. That's why now going in the future, he might not be, depending again who the defensive coordinator is, what kind of system are you going to run? Are you going to run predominantly, bump and run? You're going to be, are you going to be a zone cover 2 team, for example? If you're a more of a up press jam up the line of scrimmage kind of team and defense, you might want to think about consider moving him inside to the slot. So we'll see how it goes, but I definitely think these guys got a future here in Chicago. Whether they keep Sean Desai as defensive coordinator or bring in a whole new defensive staff. Hey,
Mule asked a question that you just answered. So let me ask you this, as just to digress just a second, because this has been a thought that I've been kind of playing around with in my head, and I've asked a couple of people. Have not asked you yet, so I'll ask you now. What do you think about Eddie Jackson potentially moving to that slot corner? Because 2 press conferences ago, he talked about how much he likes it. He's closer to the ball. He's much more in the action, that at the safety position, he's further away from the ball. He says that he's played it before, and he played it against the Raiders when they needed somebody to guard Darren Waller. He said he did it pretty good and so forth. What do you think? Could he potentially be a slot corner that you could depend on for a lot of snaps?
I would not put him as a permanent slot corner. What I would do, obviously Eddie Jackson came to Alabama as a cornerback, and he was a corner at Alabama, and then transitioned out to safety. Typically, what that tells me is he couldn't stay in phase downfield as a cornerback, and they moved him out into safety, right? So that's why he was playing safety at Alabama. Now, could he come down and play those bigger tight ends like a Waller, like a Gronkowski in the slot and cover them? Sure. But that's not a problem. But the thing is, I would like to keep him at safety, at free safety predominantly. But I like to see him get back to his ball hawking days, where he was able to jump passes and be able to tip balls and create havoc back there in a defensive backfield. So he's a guy for me has had a down season. I know he's got some injuries to deal with, but also I just the ball production from Eddie Jackson has gone down considerably since his 2018 season. So that's one thing I like to see him if he's here next year, to bounce back and stay at free safety, but to start making some plays on the ball and be that ball hawking safety that the Bears really are just paying him to be. He's just a guy that creates havoc back there, turnovers, jump routes, and make plays. But yes, he could come down and he could cover tight ends or bigger receivers in the slot. If you want to get aggressive, you can even bring him down as cover a slot and then blitz him off the slot as this guy's blitzer too. He can do that as well for you. So it gives you multiple ways you could use him. But as a permanent slot corner, I wouldn't do that. I stick him at safety and then occasionally put him on the slot receiver, depending on who it is.
Yeah. Back to Thomas Graham. The factor and I agree 100%. Thomas Graham reminds me of Kyle Fuller after watching those clips that you highlight that we're going to share with our audience. Is that a fair comp?
I think Fuller was about a 6'1". I want to say maybe a couple inches bigger, maybe a little thicker. It might be a little bit over 200 pounds. But I think, in terms of physicality, I think Fuller's more physical. But I think just because he's a bigger size cornerback. But I remember Fuller was playing some linebacker at Virginia Tech. I remember Phil Emery was went berserk when he saw him play linebacker one game, and that's why he ended up drafting him. I think it was 14th overall. So, but I think Fuller's a little bit more physical. But too, same thing with Graham and Fuller. They both excel as off coverage cornerbacks. These guys that have a good sense of in terms of coverage awareness. They do a good job of peeking into the backfield, knowing where the ball is going, seeing where the quarterback's doing with the football. And then if the ball's coming their way, they are able to transition quickly. I call it planting they plant their back heel and then just kind of transition, click their heels and come down forward, and then be able to wrap up and tackle the receiver, or if it's run defense, come up and be physical and run support as well. So I think Fuller was a little bit more bigger, 10 more bigger and a little bit more physical. But in terms of where they kind of excel, off coverage is as well. And I think both were fearless in terms of coming up as run defenders. So I think that's where the similarities for me are.
Well, you just spoke of run defending. That is indeed your first clip. So let's call it up here and have you do the analysis again, like we've done in the past several shows. It's the broadcast version first, and then we go to the all 22.
Yeah, as you're watching these clips here, remember this is Thomas Graham's first career start. His real big action in the NFL, and it's prime time Monday night. And here peels off his guy. We talked about coverage awareness, knowing what the quarterback's doing. He's comes off his man, peels off, comes on. This is a 240 pound fullback. and does a great job of just coming down, wrapping up, and securing that open field tackle. Again, first time making a start. So look at that. Turns his head around, has coverage awareness, peeks into the backfield, knows where the football is going, knows he's got safety help over the top so he can release his guy. So that's a sound assignment work there. And then just comes down. And I love the fact that he can open field tackle. I mean, we've seen this defensive secondary miss so many tackles this season that when you see a guy come up and wrap up in the open field, you jump out of your seat like it's a 50-yard touchdown play. You know, it's that's how excited you get when you see guys come up and make open field tackles. And now I'm talking about here, aggressive, downhill, guy's feisty. He's not the biggest guy in the world. And again, prime time spot here, comes on and puts his head in there and takes down a big fullback in the open field.
That is pretty, man. That is so pretty. I like this guy, and it's a great first clip to start with. Let me cue up the next clip. And do you recall what it is, Dan?
Yeah, it's the first quarter 5-yard pass to Osborne, KJ Osborne.
Oh yeah. Okay, here it comes. Should have a little Jeopardy music there. There it is.
Again, here we're talking about coverage awareness. You're going to hear me say this all the time about this guy. You know, he knows what's going on around him, even if he's within phase with the receiver downfield. Does a good job of being able to turn around and see and locate the football, see what's happening in the pocket. Here, the ball is going to KJ Osborne. He peels off his man, sees it, comes up, and again, aggressive. Hits the Osborne in stride there and brings him down with the help of Roquan Smith. But again, just that awareness, especially for a guy making his first career NFL start in a big time game, in terms of prime time. I just like the fact that it wasn't the moment wasn't too big for him, and he kind of stepped up there and made play after play. Now this is just we're showing here clips of him being aware in coverage and being able physical in terms of tackling. But later on, we're going to show you some clips in terms of him being able to make the play on the football as well. So, just overall, really impressed with that first game with Thomas Graham. And this is why I really want to kind of highlight him in terms of, showing our audience here in terms of what this kid could do. Again, first career start. If this guy gets coached up, he's only going to end up getting better and better.
It is very impressive that he keeps one eye on his responsibility downfield and another eye on the quarterback. I mean, I see a lot of cornerbacks that don't do that. This guy is gifted in having, if you want to call it peripheral vision or whatever. He's really impressive with that.
Well, I call it coverage awareness. I call it a guy that knows his responsibility, but also knows what's going on in the backfield. And a lot of guys can't do that. A lot of guys can't even take their eyes off the receiver as they're going step by step downfield with them. And how many times have we seen, defensive pass interference calls because the guy didn't even look back to find the football? What they do, a lot of these corners are especially in college, when I'm watching some of these tapes, is they're trained to key on the receiver, with the receiver's eyes, hands, body motion to see, and then that to them is an indication if the ball is coming or not. But Graham here, and this is a term I'm going to keep using over and over again, is coverage awareness. He knows what's going on. He sees, he's got the ability to go ahead and kind of feel what's going on with his receiver, knows his assignment, his safety assignment over the top. So I know he's got some protection over the top there, but then so he can peek a little bit into the backfield, sees that ball coming his way, sees the receiver, and then goes and plants him.
And Marty is absolutely right in that press conference after this game, and we'll have a couple of clips from that. Graham was extremely candid that he was not ready in camp. I mean, he sat out that entire year because of COVID.
Right.
And did he get injured in camp? Danny, do you remember?
I don't recall if he got injured, but I recall he did have a rough camp. I was at a couple of those practices, and he was getting burned consistently. And then even the preseason games, he was running with that third team, and it just didn't look really good. Didn't look nothing compared to what I saw on tape at Oregon.
We're doing great, Swanky. How are you, brother? We got a party going on here at the bar room. All right, let's move on to clip number 3. Again, we're looking at Thomas Graham in his debut start against the Vikings.
Yeah, so this is a nice big play here. They're in the Vikings are in the red zone here. Looks like they're playing some cover 3 off coverage here. The tight end tries to sneak out from the he's lined up in the line of scrimmage here. Tries to sneak out. Graham goes ahead and picks him up, identifies that he's the guy that's running that little seam route here into the end zone. Does a great job of kind of staying in phase, but kind of playing that trail technique where he's not really in up, pocket to pocket or hip to hip, I should say, with the receiver, but does a nice job of, again, locating the football, finding it as it's coming towards him, and then goes in and makes a nice jump that route, be able to cut off that the ball that's heading to Conklin, the tight end there, tips it away for incompletion. And again, first career start, guys. He had not seen any action in the NFL other than maybe special teams prior to this game here. Just thrown out there in a primetime game, and he's making plays like this.
And Danny, you say that you think this is a cover 3. Why do you say that? Because to me, it looks like just single high coverage. But why do you think it's cover?
Well, if I saw that on that copy, I thought I saw that the safety kind of rotate down. So typically, when it's cover 2 or cover 3, it's how many guys are dropping back into coverage. So it looks like it's single high safety, but then you see the other 2 corners kind of dropping off as well. So then that turns into a cover 3. So
right.
if it was single high safety, the other 2 corners typically play press man, and they stay locked to their guy, but they're kind of dropping back off coverage as well, because I think the Vikings, if you go back to their initial start of the play, I think they had a bunch formation going there. They had like two or three receivers lined up to the left side there as well. So but I think just the way they dropped back, it caught it gone from a single high to a cover 3 because of the way the Bears tried to disguise their coverage, and then the way that the Vikings kind of lined up their formation.
Respond to Scox here, just a touchdown. Mule had a comment here saying that he can tell from these clips that he does not have stiff hips. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, in terms of stiff hips, I mean, typically what we do when you're scouting, you see a guy in terms of when he's dropping back into coverage, and then when he opens up his gait, we call it, when he opens up his legs and tries to fall into, does he stay in line, in phase, we call it, with the receiver downfield. And you can see Graham does have that ability here as well to go ahead and open. And that's why I think, because of the size, because of his toughness, because of his ability to come up and be an enforcer and tackler, and because of the ability to kind of stay with these quicker shifter receivers, I think his future could be inside in the slot position.
Very good. All right. Clip number 4 on your list of goodies.
Yeah, clip number 4. This is the one. This is a pass to Marset. Again, lines up on a slot here, on a slot receiver. Again, we're talking about being able to stay in phase with the receiver. Smith Marset is one of the faster receivers coming out of Iowa here. Does a good job of, again, staying in phase and having the awareness. This time he doesn't really do a full head turn to look back, but he keys off something, whether it's the receiver's eyes, the hands, but he does a decent job of kind of turning his head a little bit to the side so he can eliminate not getting that penalty, that pass interference penalty, and then puts his hands, plays through the receiver's hands and gets that ball knocked away. So that's another pass break up there as well. So again, I like the way he stayed in coverage off the line of scrimmage in the slot there, talked about the hips, the quick feet there. And then also the keying off the receiver, whether it's his hands or his eyes or whatever, his head, and then just being able to kind of look back for the football there, kind of does an over the top look instead of just turning his head all the way around. That kind of eliminates the pass interference call from the referee, and then just plays it through the receiver's hands and gets that ball out of there.
Yeah, it is. It does. I remember when I was a kid, a football coach told me, when you're guarding the wide receiver and he turns his head, and as soon as you see his eyes getting wide, know the ball is coming. Turn your head, do something. Don't continue to do what you were doing, because that ball is coming.
Right. Yeah, that's what they say, keying off the receiver, whether it's his hands, his eyes. Sometimes some receivers have some tells. That's why tape study is really key for these cornerbacks. These great cornerbacks, that they can see if a receiver, whether it's shoulder dip or something, he slows down in his route, that he knows that the football is coming. So that's how these great receivers, when they break down these tapes, or these cornerbacks, I should say, they break down these tapes and they can get something that can help them go ahead and key off a receiver to be able to know when to turn back around. If you don't have the ability to go ahead and peek and stay in phase, you have to then key off a receiver and some of the things that, or some of the traits that he has in terms of when the ball is coming, some of the telltale signs.
Very good. All right, clip number 5.
Yeah, this one is a incomplete pass here to Jefferson, but what he does here, again, takes enough of a step back into coverage. Again, that wasn't his guy, but again, just kind of, that wasn't his responsibility, but he's just dropping back there in zone coverage. And again, feels where the quarterback's going with that football. Okay, does a good job of just getting. I think he may have jumped a little bit too soon here, because if he kept just drifting back a little bit, I think he might have been able to get that ball, maybe get an interception there. But I think he just got a little bit too excited there and maybe jumped a little bit too quick. But again, just being able to know where that ball is going, seeing where the quarterback's doing with the football, and then having the ability, because right there he was kind of in between. Because if that quarterback went to the guy in the slot or in the flats, he was going to attack him downfield and probably tackle him in the open field. But then he saw that the quarterback was going to the receiver, continued drifting back there, and just be able to jump up there and get his hands on the football.
Right here at this point is when he is saying, okay, the running back is coming out, or the tight end, whoever that is, and I want to keep an eye on that receiver. So he makes that decision. He hesitates a bit, and then he gets back there.
Right. Gets back there, has enough ability to recover, to stop, and then start again, recover, get back there and get his hands up. And I think if he kept going, not jumping, I think he might be able to, maybe get both hands on the football and have an interception there. But again, impressive play for and I keep saying this, for a guy making his first career start on a primetime game.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, AC is in the chat. What do you got to say, Mr. Bearded Bears fan? I think y'all got to get one of these pass rushers. I'm talking like I'm a Southerner. Why did I do that? I think y'all, because he wrote y'all, got to get one of those pass rushers that high. I'm not a big fan of picking. Oh, they're talking about drafts, and so that's where he chimed in on that. We'll talk about that a little. I'll star those, and we'll try to get to those at the end of the show. All right. I included.
Surprised AC he was a Kentucky player.
By the way, AC is like anxious to be a guest on Draft on Tap because he's got some players that he's been scouting, SEC players, and particularly Kentucky
players. Yeah, they got some offensive linemen, that some boys coming down from there.
Yeah, so we're going to book you, AC, for a Draft on Tap. Danny, Neil, and I had a pre-production meeting just before the show, so we've got some good stuff in store. We'll talk about it later. All right, let's go to that next game against Seattle in that snowstorm. And I think it was the very first snap or the very first series.
It was the first series for Seattle. Yeah, I know which play you're gonna talk about here. So again, the thing here with Graham is, all right, he's going up against DK Metcalf. He's a bigger, stronger, more faster receiver. If you're going to go up there and press jam him, especially in these kind of conditions, get both hands on him. It's at least route him or try to reroute him, try and slow him down. He just tries to mirror him off the line of scrimmage. And Metcalf does a great job of releasing and getting open. And now he's lost a foot race. And Metcalf runs a 4.3 40 for a guy that big. So I think that was just a rookie mistake. If you're going to come up and press, you better get your hands on him, because if you miss, or if you don't slow him down, and he does a great job like that of releasing on you, he kind of shakes you there. A guy that runs 4.3 with that size, you're not going to catch him, especially in these conditions. So I think that was a rookie mistake, and I think that was something that a lot of people started kind of saying the rose off the bloom with Thomas Graham, and I think that was just the first player or for sure for first series for Seattle. But if you go back and watch the rest of the game, that was it. Metcalf didn't do anything else after the game. And I think Thomas Graham had a nice job of kind of redeeming himself and playing a solid game later on in that football game. So it was just a rookie mistake for me. If I was him, if I was Deshaun Townsend, his DB coach, I'd be like, listen, you're going to come up here. You press man. This guy's a big dude. You got to try. You might not, affect him. You're not going to, knock him off his feet. But you got to do something to slow him down. Get your hands on him in that first 5 yards, and then try and stay in phase with him. But I think that was just a rookie mistake there.
Yeah, that was actually his first series, because in this game it was Artie Burns that started, and then in the second series for Seattle, Graham went in. And what do you think about what people are saying about Eddie Jackson? Do you think that Eddie Jackson has some responsibility here? I mean, he's sneaking over to Metcalf's side. And unfortunately, the All-22 wasn't available. Thank you, Game Pass. You suck.
Don't start on Game Pass. Yeah, it looks like Eddie Jackson kind of bit on something. I'm not sure what that other route, maybe the underneath route, he can look like he was kind of getting out of position, because you're right. It started off that he was kind of drifting over to Thomas Graham, and then all of a sudden he kind of bit on something in the middle of the field, and now he's caught in transition. So depending on what Seattle was doing, depending on what kind of defense they're running there, their call looks like there might be an underneath route there, that the guy going up the seam there might be cutting it across. And I think Eddie Jackson's kind of jumping off of that one, and then kind of left his position there, and Graham had no help over the top.
Oh man, Eddie. And
you want him playing cornerback.
I know. I just want him I just want him to do good. I'm trying to find a spot for him. Maybe parking cars. Maybe that's his best position. I don't know. All right, let's listen to Thomas Graham talk. This was a couple of days after the game against the Vikings. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. After that, I do want to come back and talk about something you touched on. Why is he not starting?
Okay, we'll do that. And I think actually he sort of addresses it here, but we'll definitely talk about it on the other end of the sound bites right here.
I think I needed the time in general just to help me get back in the flow of things. And it took some time.
So what he is saying, basically, why weren't you starting?
Time for me to regain my confidence. And I'll say after the bye week is when it really started to come back, and I started to feel like who I felt I was and who I am. And I think once that happened, that's when my opportunity started to come. And we had some injuries go down and make sure my boy X and DHC get well soon. But just that happened, and it was just my time to step up, and they made sure to prepare me the whole time.
Tom, you looked like a veteran out there. I mean, you seemed to be where you needed to be all the time. You were making big plays in big moments. Does it just come naturally? Did it take you a while to get comfortable on the field? What was it like, your first NFL experience, primetime national TV?
Everybody just kept telling me just to be myself and play the ball I know. So my whole thing when I went out there was just go out there and do you and stay with good eyes and win to your leverage. And I was winning to my leverages. They tried me, and I was in great position to make the play. And I just told myself, go make it.
Pat Finley.
You mentioned it wasn't until after the bye week that things kind of started clicking. Were you doubting yourself? And what's it like to have self-doubt, especially at the highest level in the world?
I kind of feel like it just shows that we're all human. We all go through our own battles every day and fight them. And my confidence wasn't where it was at to be where I wanted to be. And it kind of just starts with a reality check. Like, you have to start with yourself before you can go anywhere else. So I was just like, why am I not on the field? And what am I not doing to be able to put myself in position to move up? And I started looking. I was just like, I'm not playing the way I would want to play. I haven't showed that I'm better than anybody to do that. So I had to make sure I got to keep showing day in and day out and competing and getting better. And I feel like I did that.
I'm really impressed with that young man. I mean, he is saying all the right things. He's humble. He's authentic. He's sincere. He goes on to talk about how Ryan Pace helped him, because he reached out to Ryan Pace and said, what do I got to do? And so Pace would send him tape and look at this, look at that, which is something that I don't hear, general managers do often. So that's one on the plus side for Ryan Pace. I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 on the plus and 700 on the negative, but that's another story.
Yeah, I can beat you on that one. Ryan Pace has a lot more pluses than that, my friend.
Okay. Go ahead. You wanted to talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, he was talking there in that clip about why he wasn't starting earlier on in the season, which we kind of talked to, the off year at Oregon, coming in as a one of the premier corners last year into school, and sets out. I think this took him a while to get used to everything, and again, almost 2 years of a year and a half of not playing. So I think that's why he wasn't starting that. I'm talking about why he's not starting now. After the Minnesota game, I should not see Artie Burns starting for the Chicago Bears at corner. And so Artie Burns started at corner versus Seattle, right? And then he started this past week again versus the Giants. Why am I not seeing Thomas Graham starting out there? And this is something that kind of infuriates me, because I want to see Graham out there, but this kind of also tells me that Matt Nagy's gone, because Matt Nagy is going to put the veterans out there, guys that are going to help him put a good tape out there. So when he goes out there and he applies for another position, another job, says, look, we won these many games and so on and so forth. So that's why he's going to win as many games as he can. And he's not going to look for the future of the Bears. He's looking for putting out good tape. A couple weeks ago, I said he's resume building right now. He's out there resume building, and he's going to play all these guys, these veterans, that he has on the roster. So that's what infuriates me, is Thomas Graham should be out there playing, getting more experience, unless he's hurt, and we haven't heard him being hurt. He should be out there starting instead of Artie Burns.
Are you happy with Jalen Johnson as a CB1?
He's not a CB1 yet, but he's on his way. He's on his way to a CB1. I think he started off great. I think week 1 or week 2, I'm talking about this guy as a CB1, and then he had a little lull there. Started with that first Packers game, and then some other mishaps there. But I think he's rebounded nicely, and I think he's taken that leadership role in that defensive backfield, something that you kind of expected Eddie Jackson to be more vocal. But I think Jalen Johnson's kind of done that now. I think he is on his way to being a CB1. I would love to pair him with a nice veteran on the outside as well, maybe via free agency. Not a big name veteran, but just a solid corner that can play opposite of him. And then, like I said, Thomas Graham, and you still have Kindle Wilder as well. Give you some of that, maybe that competition inside at slot corner. But I think you put a nice veteran out opposite Jalen Johnson. You get that nickel position covered with Graham or with Kindle Wilder. And I think then you have the makings of a nice secondary there.
Kyle Fuller is going to be a free agent. There's no way anybody will pay him the $10 million he's making this year. Would you accept Kyle Fuller back at a reduced price, like half of that $10 million?
Kyle Fuller got benched by Vic Fangio in Denver. And then everyone here is blaming Ryan Pace and the Bears for cutting Kyle Fuller. Kyle Fuller was going to make $20 million last year, and the time it happened, Aldo, do you remember? I said that Kyle Fuller is not a number one corner. Kyle Fuller right now is not a number one corner, $20 million a year guy, and they cut him, and he went and got $14 million from Vic Fangio, and he got benched halfway through the season. And have you seen the Denver secondary? I mean, it's not like they have a plethora of corners just kind of lining up to play there. So they needed help at corner, and they found someone else to come in and play better than him. So for me, Kyle Fuller is not a number one corner. If you want to bring him in at a reduced veteran minimum and have him trying to compete for a job with a young guy, the guy you may draft, fine, he could be your backup guy. But he's again, and depending what kind of system you're going to play. If you're going to play a system that relies a lot on press coverage off the line of scrimmage, Kyle Fuller is not your guy. If you want to play a more of a zone, cover 2, cover 3 kind of, see where the corner is more off coverage, and then you can see him come down and be aggressive and run support. Now, I haven't seen a bunch of Kyle Fuller tapes in Denver. I'm not sure exactly why he got benched, but obviously, Vic Fangio does a lot of zone stuff. He's not a predominant press man guy. So if Vic Fangio benches him, I remember Ed Donatel, the secondary coach here with the Bears, is a defensive coordinator there in Denver. So if he's not good enough to play in Denver, I'm not sure Kyle Fuller is good enough to start for the Bears here.
I agree. I mean, there's no way I would pay him $10 million. I'm not even sure I would pay him $5 million, although I think some team will sign him for about that much. Other free agent cornerbacks that could be interesting. What about Bryce Callahan? He is now 30 years old. He was making $6.1 million with the Broncos. He's going to be a free agent. He gets injured every year. If you could get him for $3 million, would you bring him back?
But he's more of a slot cornerback for me. And I think what you need now, like I said, I have confidence in Vildor and Thomas Graham to cover the slot. And we don't know what's going to happen in terms of draft picks, whatever they're going to use this year in this draft. So we'll see what happens there. But I think you need an outside corner opposite of Jalen Johnson. I think you need to get that situation cleared up. And a guy I'm kind of keeping an eye on, and I know he was traded or cut and signed with Carolina midway through the season is Gilmore, Stephon Gilmore. I don't know if it's a 1-year deal he signed with Carolina or if it's just a multi-year deal. But if he's available,
yeah, he is available.
So he's a veteran guy that he's not the Gilmore that was a shutdown corner a couple years ago in New England, but he's a guy that can come in there. And if you have a young kid sitting behind him, a draft pick, for example, he's a guy that can probably give you some solid play at corner opposite of Jalen Johnson. Again, you're not asking him to be a cover corner. You're not asking him to be a shutdown guy that's going to for example, go after Devontae Adams, switch sides with Devontae Adams. That's something that hopefully you're grooming Jalen Johnson to do. But this is going to be a guy that's going to come in and maybe cover the second guy on the opposing team's offense, the second threat in terms of receiver. So I think he's a guy that I would bring in and make him a 1 or 2 year vet deal, and just see what he does there. Again, a nice a vet example for Jalen Johnson. And if you bring in another guy in the draft, another kid in the draft, a guy that can kind of take over once Gilmore is done with his short-term contract, that's a guy I would look at. But I mean, I haven't gone through the entire list of free agent corners, but I do know that I would like to attack that opposite corner from Jalen Johnson with the NFL veteran.
Stephen Gilmore, according to Spotrac.com, his market value this year is going to be $14 million. So that's what they're estimating it's going to take to sign him, an average annual salary of $14 million. That's second behind J.C. Jackson of the New England Patriots.
He's gonna be franchise tagged. I think New England's gonna franchise tag him.
8 interceptions, 26 years old. Yeah, if they don't sign him to a long-term contract, he probably will be franchised. I think you're right.
But like J.C. Jackson, he's the top of the echelon on the corners. You can't afford him, right? Even if you wanted him, you can't afford him. I know the Bears are going to have roughly around $50 million in salary cap space, but you have so many holes along the defense and offensive line. I think that's going to be something that you have to take a look at there and spend a lot of your money there. Also, you got to think about Roquan Smith. He's going to be coming up for his extension as well, though. So I would like to get a good veteran. Someone that again, depending on the system you're playing. So if you're playing a more of an off, like a off coverage, zone scheme, cover 2, cover 3, Fuller could be a guy that could give you a solid year. But again, depending on who you bring in here and what kind of system you're going to play, but definitely I can't pay another corner 15 to 20 million to be a 1 or 2 year guy, because again, I'm invested in Jalen Johnson, I'm invested in some of the younger guys, but I also had to get my defensive line all taken care of there up front.
Kindle Vildor, disappointing sophomore season. Where's your thinking right now on Kindle?
Again, he's a guy that I'm going to lump in there in the inside with Thomas Graham. I'm still a fan of Vildor. I think he, for me at least, and you guys might disagree, you guys might agree, but I think once the pass rush stopped being effective, I mean, once Khalil Mack went out, it was just basically, and then Hakeem Hicks got hurt, it was just basically Robert Quinn by himself. And I think there are times where the quarterbacks back there had 5, 6, 7 seconds at times to find a receiver downfield. And I think that's where he started getting picked on more. And then I think that's where the confidence kind of dipped on Kindle Vildor. And I think he started doubting himself, just kind of like how Thomas Graham was talking about. He was having self-doubt. And because NFL, man, these receivers will humble you in an instant. And no matter how good of a game you had 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, these guys can come out there and they can put up a big play. And next thing you know, you got your head hanging. And he's still a young guy. He's just a second-year player. First year really starting. Maybe the expectations were heaped too high on him. Maybe the Bears and the coaching staff thought he could start, and maybe he wasn't ready to start. But he's a guy for me. I wouldn't put him on the outside. I put him on the inside. I let him compete with Thomas Graham at that slot cornerback.
Yeah, I'm not ready to give up on him, but yeah, I wouldn't go into next season thinking he's going to be the second or third cornerback. And I really haven't noticed his play on special teams much. So if he's not good at special teams, he better get good, because that's going to be a key part of him making the team next season. All right, Artie Burns. I know he's never lived up to his first round draft status, but the dude has made some plays.
Really?
Don't you think?
I mean, I see a pass breakup here and there, but I mean, I see more pass completions on him than pass breakups.
Really? I'll have to do some study on that, but I think that he's another guy that, again, I don't consider him as a starter candidate. But I think that he's a guy that could be fourth or fifth on your cornerback list, and he could be reliable.
The third or fourth cornerback on your list has got to be a guy that in a pinch can come in and play the outside and play the slot.
Yeah, those guys are hard to find.
talk about stiff hips. Artie Burns has stiff hips. He cannot open up his gate and be able to stay in phase downfield with the receiver for the life of him. So, I don't know if that's because of the injuries and all that stuff, but yeah, he's a guy that for me, maybe moving to safety. I have no idea. I just know that he has problems staying in phase. Now he's a bigger corner. He's a more physical corner. He's a guy that can go up there and press at the line of scrimmage and be a little disruptive there off the receiver's release. But when the receiver gets downfield, good luck staying in phase with him. So if your pass rushers aren't sacking the quarterback within 2 or 3 seconds, most likely the quarterback is going to the receiver that Artie Burns is trying to cover downfield.
Well, going back to the free agent list, a guy that we talked a lot about when he came out of college was Desmond King. Didn't he go to Iowa, if I remember correctly? Yeah. So he's a free agent this year. He's got 3 interceptions. What do you think about Desmond King?
He's been predominantly inside as a slot corner.
Okay.
So I'm me, and you might be looking for a slot corner. I'm looking for an outside corner. I'm looking for a guy that I can put on the outside opposite Jalen Johnson, because I think I think between Graham and Vilder, I think we could use those 2 guys to help us cover the inside slot. So that's how I'm looking at it, right? But yeah, so I'm looking for guys that are going to be predominantly on the outside. We're talking about guys that maybe have length, maybe have physical at the line of scrimmage. Again, I keep saying this, but it's all going to depend on what kind of system you're going to be playing next year. Predominantly, what is going to be a off coverage system is going to be a man press system at the line of scrimmage. That's how you fill that need there.
There is one other name, a guy who was making peanuts this year, Anthony Everett with Baltimore. He played in 808 snaps. That's effing incredible. He had 3 interceptions. This guy was making $780,000 this year. His market value, according to Spotrac, is now up to $12.5 million in average annual salary. Do you think a guy like that could potentially be a starter opposite Jalen?
I got to go ahead and break down his tape with the Ravens. Now, I'm assuming he's still playing. He's not injured, but the Ravens have had one of the worst secondaries in the NFL this season. I mean, they're becoming a big play after big play. So I'm not sure how their Spotrac is doing that in terms of
I think they just do it based on statistics. I don't think it's anything.
So I haven't really looked at Everett in terms of his play this year with Baltimore. So I really couldn't give you much in terms of his ability or project him into a starter on the Bears.
I was talking about Anthony Everett. He came from Alabama. He's 27 years old. He's been in the league 3 years, and I don't know. He's an intriguing candidate, but at that kind of money, 12.4, yeah, we got to do a lot more homework.
The only thing I know is the Ravens are giving up big chunks of plays in their secondary. And so I mean, it's not all his fault. I mean, obviously, there's no pass rush up front or whatnot, but I got to do more of a dig in terms of his value there in terms of how he's playing throughout the season. So Carlton Davis, Bryce brings up a good name. Carlton Davis is a guy from the Buccaneers. That's going to be a solid corner, but I think he might be in that 14 to 15 million range as well. So he's a guy that comes from Todd Bowles' system. He's an aggressive, guy that can press up front, and then also does a good job of rerouting his receivers at the line of scrimmage, and also does a solid job of staying in phase downfield. But I think he's going to be a little bit higher than what the Bears are willing to pay. But again, we'll see what happens in terms of who they resign, whether Akeem Hicks is back and Bilal Nichols and some of the other guys. So I think you take care of the offense and defensive line first. Once you got those guys taken care of, then you start looking at the secondary.
Yeah, $20 million is what Spotrac is anticipating he's going to make next season. So he's definitely not going to play for the Bucs next season, and not going to play for the Bears either.
Yeah, he's a second round pick out of Auburn. I think he's a guy that I like coming out of Auburn in the draft as well.
Did he play safety as well? That according to Mule, he's asking.
No, I mean, the thing I started with Auburn was corner.
Okay. Very good. All right. Somebody asked earlier in the chat, boy, I hope we get to see some tape on Justin Fields. Well, I hate to let you down. We don't have any tape on Justin Fields, but I want to make you a promise that Danny and I are going to do a season retrospective on Justin Fields and devote an entire show to him, not only his good moments, but his bad moments and a couple of ugly moments as well. So we'll have that planned for you in the near future, and we'll also select some sound bites of him sharing his way of thinking, but also some of the coaches and what they're thinking. So actually, what I want to do right now, this could be the last time, Danny, you and I will have the privilege of listening to Bill Lazor press conference, because we've loved him all year. He's the most authentic, honest guy on the staff, right?
I would love if they had gotten rid of Nagy in midseason and make Lazor the head coach. I would have loved his press conferences.
Yeah, I would too, man.
Imagine Lazor unfiltered as the guy. Yeah. This is him reporting to Matt Nagy. Imagine him as the head guy.
Right.
How much truth we get?
Yeah. So anyway, he answered at today's press conference today, Thursday, January 6th already. Damn. He answered about 2 or 3 questions. No, more than that. A few questions on Justin Fields. So unedited, here's about 6 minutes worth of Bill Lazor talking about Justin Fields. It's also our way of saying goodbye to Bill Lazor, who has been our go-to guy for sound bites all season long here on Bare Truth. Bill Lazor.
He was able to take the offense down and score. We were behind, realized that he
Season.
Well,
I can answer, Kevin, that I want him to come out of this with confidence. I want him to realize that he was, we were behind against the Steelers in the fourth quarter, and he was able to take the offense down and score. We were behind against the Ravens, and he was able to go down and score. That he was on the big stage.
So what he's saying here, in case you missed it, he was asked, what is it that you want Justin Fields to come out of for this season? He's talking about confidence, that Justin should come out with
Monday
confidence.
Night Football of whatever situation we were in, and was able to perform. And so I know it sounds silly because he's done it right for his whole life, but still, we're all human. You get to this point, and now, okay, this is my rookie year. Well, I want him to step away and say yes. Just like they were telling me, I can do this, and this is going to be a great story. And you use that confidence to kind of propel him into how the future goes.
2 more, Pat Finley.
Bill, what is it about Justin's personality that you found that is helped him maybe get through, especially the last 2 months, must have been incredibly frustrating?
Well, the thing about when I think of Justin, I mean, I think he's always around me. What I see, he's always himself. I've never seen him be anything other than who he wants to be. I've never seen him try to be something different for other people or for his teammates. I think he's very sincere. I don't watch all the press conferences, and I'm not in the locker room with him, but every interaction I see, I think he's himself. And so I think his teammates really appreciate that, his coaches. And I'm not saying he's perfect. None of us are. And that's why John DeFilippo spends all the time, counseling him both in football and how to be a pro and all the things. But he's always himself. And so I think guys appreciate that. And so I think when he goes through difficult times, which injuries can be difficult times for competitors, he can people realize what he's going through, and those of us who are here to help him and help him develop, he allows himself to be coached and to be counseled and to be helped. But the guy's himself all the time, and I think he's true to himself when he's in this building, and I think everyone appreciates that.
In your time around other quarterbacks, have you found a correlation between guys who just try to be themselves and success, and the way people treat them as leaders? Is that a good sign, I guess is what I'm asking?
Well, I've seen it no different than in any other. I mean, think of your workplace when you're not remote, right? Which we all have been more recently. Think of the people who are themselves and are sincere and authentic, and think of the people who put on airs when they're around the boss or act differently to try to fit in with different groups. I think people see through that over time. And I think in the end, this guy's going to be in stressful, tough situations. And if you're not being yourself, and you're putting up some false persona, it's going to crack, and then people will know that you weren't just being authentic. So I think it's helpful in that when you're in such tight quarters and so often in stressful situations with your teammates and coaches, that they can trust who you are. And I think he's earned that.
Last question, Mark Grody.
Bill, Justin told us yesterday that one of the areas that he's improved in is seeing the entire field. How hard is that part to get down for young quarterbacks, seeing everything?
Well, I think when you think of, someone taught me a long time ago, recall, quarterbacks got a recall process and apply. It's recall. When I get to play, I've got to remember not only just how to call the play in the huddle, but all the aspects. Let's say it's a pass play, all the aspects of this pass play. Here's with the formation. And so I have to take a snapshot of the formation because I have to help make sure everyone's lined up correctly, which we assume they will. And then, okay, what's the protection on this play? Is this a protection where I have to deal with adjustments? If the defense, if Harrison Smith is down on the line, am I going to have to adjust this protection or all the things that go with it? Do I have to make the call, or is the center going to make the call? And then, okay, is this a simple play to read, or is it one where versus man, I throw it here, versus zone, I throw it here? So, all those things that he has to think about. That's the recall of our offense. And then process, right? So now you're as you're walking, the huddle's breaking, you get into the line of scrimmage, you're taking in the defense. To me, this is a big part of probably where layers and layers are added from college, because in college, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes you face certain teams that are going to play a certain style of defense over and over and over in the game. With the college hashes as wide as they are, a lot of colleges play field boundary. Not as many NFL teams play that because the hashes are closer. So in colleges, they said these guys always set to the field and these guys always set to the boundary. So you kind of know where everyone is. Whereas in the NFL, you got all these layers. So that's the process part of it. I'm processing what the defense is doing. I'm remembering all of the tendencies I studied during the week when the safeties are tilted this way. Is that a false rotation? They're actually blitzing from the other side? Or is this a team that holds their two safeties and shows late? Then application, right? So recall. Our offense, our stuff, process, you're taking in what the defense is. Now I got to apply it. I have to take the rules of what we're about to run and what I just told the guys in the huddle and apply it to all these things I've studied about this defense during the week. And, every once in a while, it's nice to give the quarterback kind of a no-brainer, or not just a handoff, but even in the pass game where hey, the protection's going to turn, the backs are in the block. You don't have to worry about the blitz. Just throw it to A-Rob or throw it to Mooney if you can. But that's not, you can't only have so many of those plays in an NFL game. You have to have all these games where you're just constantly working mentally, recall, process, application, over and over and over. And I think the coaches do it a little bit too. That's why I like to get a ride home and take a nap after the game. And I'm sure they do too.
Love that guy.
That is the best way. I wish we can just keep that and replay it. And what do I talk about, Aldo, when we're talking about quarterbacks, right? We're talking about the ability to process, to be able to, see what's going on pre-snap and then post-snap, again, process and now apply it to what's happening with the defense. He just made a good point in terms of the safeties. Are they both back there, even levels, safeties? Are they one showing high, one showing low? Are they going to rotate? Is there going to be a robber? Is one of them going to drop down in the middle of the field and take away my inside? All this thing's got to go on. And yet you have these 300-pound men coming after you. So imagine, so people say, oh, Justin Fields has happy feet. Well, imagine you processing all that or trying to process all that. And damn well your offensive line sucks, or your coach has Myles Garrett, an all-pro defensive end, lined up against Cole Kmet one-on-one. So all these things are going through your head here, and then now you have to process this and kind of make plays. So that's why you see some of these quarterbacks that come up and kind of struggle here early on. Because if you hadn't seen any of this stuff in college, and if you're not being coached up properly in the NFL, so that's why, like, when we get to my list of head coaches, I don't like to throw rookie quarterbacks out there just like that and like, all right, go fetch and kind of learn. Kind of like, people say, oh, if you want to learn how to swim, just throw someone in the pool and they'll just kind of float and get back and learn how to swim. No, rookies, you have to kind of walk them through it. You're gonna have to get them through it, get them to different phases of this, what he just described, right? The process, being able to identify what's going on pre-snap, and then now in post-snap, applying what you saw, and now reacting to what the defense is doing. So you got to have to kind of feed the rookie quarterbacks nice and easy and slowly. And some come in and do it well because A, they've seen some of this in college, or B, they have tremendous teachers in terms of quarterback coaches or offensive coordinators or whatnot, and they can kind of walk them through it. So that's what we talk about here in terms of once he sees all this and the experience he's had this year, the good and the bad, now he kind of puts it in the back of his mind. And something I've said about Justin Fields since we drafted him is that once he makes a mistake, typically you don't see him making the same mistake over and over and over again. So he processes it quickly and puts it into his memory bank, and then goes in. And then next time when that situation arises again, he doesn't make the same mistake. So, that was a tremendous way of breaking it down and just showing how much it all is how complicated it is, and now how much you need to protect that quarterback initially. You can't let him out there against Cleveland and let him get sacked 9 times, and while all this shit's running through his head.
That Cleveland game will be, I think, should have been, I should say, the final nail in Matt Nagy's career. What he did to that young quarterback in Cleveland by not even knowing that you had to max protect, that you had to run the ball more, that you had to really simplify things for this quarterback who you did not properly prepare to start an NFL game. You didn't give him snaps with the number 1 quarterback. You didn't, treat him in a way that would have fully prepared him for that Cleveland Browns game. That was coaching negligence. That was a coaching felony, right? Yeah. So, I mean, how much do you think, because I see a lot of comments in the chat room about how much Matt Nagy really screwed up Justin Fields' rookie season. Do you agree with that? And if so, how much did he screw it up?
I don't think he screwed up to the point where, like, for example, I don't think the kid's shell shocked. I don't think the kid has lost confidence in himself. I still think he's a very confident kid. I think that the kid knows the talent he has. I think he knows he can make plays. That's why that Pittsburgh game is something that he should go back and take a look at again, and just the way he delivered in prime time, end of the game, versus a pretty darn good defense there. I think that's something that he should kind of hang his hat on and say, you know what, I can do this, and that was it. The Cleveland game, some of the other times where he had no opportunity, no chance really behind a makeshift offensive line or maybe the play call. That's why when you roll him out, what you do there is you get him out away from pressure, first of all, and then you cut the field in half and you allow him to look at 1-2 reads, either get rid of the football or run. That kind of, he talked about it later there about giving him a break, giving him a gimme, right? Those are gimme plays right there. You roll out, it's either Mooney's your primary guy or Cole Kmet coming in the flat. If they're not there, throw the ball away or run with it. That's a gimme play. He doesn't have to sit there and process and think about it and all that stuff. And he's getting away from pressure. And he's getting away from an offensive line that's been struggling, right? So that's the way you kind of bring these rookie quarterbacks in, kind of give them some of this experience. And now once you fix the offensive line, once the offensive line gives them 4 or 5 seconds to go and get back there and process, now you can see him kind of make the plays. Then the other issue with him is he's guys have playmakers other than Darnell Mooney and maybe a Cole Kmet, and his best player on offense is his running back, and then turning around, handing the ball to his running back. But the coach doesn't like the running game. The coach wants to continue calling these big pass plays downfield that they take 15, 20-yard, routes that these receivers are running. But guess what? You need a blocking up front to be able to give you that time to go ahead and be able to run those routes. And now those receivers downfield have to create the separation to get open. So all this was just kind of throwing on him. So to answer your question, I'm sorry, this is like I just kind of went off a tangent here. But to answer your question, I don't think they broke him. I'm glad he's not playing, or possibly not playing this week, because Matt Nagy's out there trying to build his resume, and he's going to run his system. He's going to run his offense. It's going to be the Vikings are going to be out there playing hard for Mike Zimmer, and I think that there's a chance he might have gotten hurt. So I just put him away. There's going to be a whole new staff in here next year, and I would just go ahead and let him start fresh with the new staff. There's no reason for Justin Fields to go out there and play this week.
All right. Now we're going to go into a different direction. Danny wants to share some of his head coaching candidates. How would you phrase this? These are guys that you would like to see become head coach of the Bears, or guys that you want to see interviewed? How would you phrase this?
So the reason I did this exercise is I get hit up a lot of times, like, who would you like, or do you like this guy, or do I like, and I to be honest, I hadn't done a full deep dive into some of these coaches, like, mid-season. I think, once we knew, maybe after that Cleveland game, that Nagy was gone, a name I threw out there was Brian Doble, right? The offensive coordinator from the Buffalo Bills, right? But then I started watching some more Buffalo's games, and I started, looking at their offense, and what he does is he's a guy that's pass heavy as well. Now I like the way that they form that offense around their quarterback, but first of all, he doesn't like running his running backs a lot. Second of all, he puts his quarterback, Josh Allen, in a harm's way a lot. And I'm not talking about just bootlegs. And I mean, he's running him quarterback draws in the middle of the defensive line. I mean, in the middle of the offensive line. So in between the tackles, basically. Now I know Josh Allen is a big strapping quarterback. So, I just don't like that aspect. I don't like putting my franchise quarterback in that harm's way that many times. Once a while, okay, first down, a short yard, play, you can kind of catch a defense napping. Sure, no problem. But to continue, I mean, I think Allen runs it about 10 or 12 times a game. So he's a guy that I didn't like the way he's been calling the plays this year. So I kind of took him off my list. But what I wanted to do is I want to give you guys these names that I am intrigued by. Right now, they're not perfect. They all have their pluses and their minuses, and we can take a deep dive, Aldo, in each one of these guys if you want. I've come prepared in terms of my notes and all that stuff, but I'll let you drive here. But I think the Bears need to get a head coach that has prior head coaching experience. I don't think they should go get one of these new assistants that have never coached before, because I think they have that big of a project here. I think they need a guy that can come in. And again, Justin Fields is my main focus here. I'm bringing in a guy that potentially can help Justin Fields flourish and get better as a starting quarterback in the NFL. So I've given you 4 guys that I would kind of former head coaches that have winning, in their background. Either they've won a Super Bowl as a coach, they've coached in a Super Bowl and won as an assistant. So those are my top 4 guys. And then I have 2 guys that have no head coaching experience, and then we can kind of break these guys down here as you guys want to go.
Sounds good. All right, we're going to start with the first guy on your list was Doug Peterson, the former Super Bowl winning head coach with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, so obviously Doug Peterson, we just talked about it, former, NFL winning, Super Bowl winning head coach with the Eagles in 2017 for a career of 42, 37-1. Just a little bit over 50% in terms of his 500 in terms of his winning percentage. So the one thing with him is he's got a vast background in terms of offensive, play calling, being an offensive assistant. He was a quarterback coach. He was an offensive coordinator, and then obviously a head coach. The one thing that kind of drew me to him was his when he was with the Eagles and Michael Vick. Back in 2011 and 2012. I think Michael Vick, we saw him kind of flourish with Philadelphia when he was there. And I think, thinking of Justin Fields, a guy that's got the mobility, got an athlete, a quarterback with good arm strength, be able to get the ball downfield. That's something that intrigues me, right? And the other thing that intrigues me about Doug Peterson was 2017 when Carson Wentz went down. Remember, Carson Wentz was having an MVP caliber of a season. He went ahead and after inserted Nick Foles, he went ahead and he changed that offense, right? Now, Carson Wentz is not a mobile quarterback like, say, a Lamar Jackson, but he's an athletic kid. He's a guy that can get out and can escape the pressure and can run, can make plays, a mini dual threat quarterback, if you will. You put in Nick Foles, that's a statue back there. We've all seen Nick Foles, guys. He cannot outrun anybody. So now he changed his offense around and kind of lifted it and added more of that RPO, that repass option there, and gave Nick Foles the opportunity to utilize his strengths, which is reading the defense and be able to get that ball quickly into the hands of the playmakers. And I think that really impressed me because mid-season, he loses his MVP caliber quarterback. He alters his offense and he goes ahead and wins the Super Bowl. I think that is something that really caught my eye and really impressed me with Doug Peterson. The other thing was he's one of the more aggressive play callers in football, or was known to be. I think him and Mike Tomlin were one of the first head coaches that really started this whole phase of going for it on 4th down. And I think also the 2-point conversion, when that became more prevalent in terms of teams going for it, Doug Peterson was one of the more aggressive ones. And I think another thing is he's aggressive in the moment, right? Remember that Philly special Super Bowl? We've seen the clip where Nick Foles comes to him and says, "Hey, let's run Philly special." He's like, "You want to?" And he's like, "Yeah." It's like, "All right, let's do it." And that was an aggressive coach that trusted his player who says, "Run this play right now." Lo and behold, ran a play, touchdown. I like that. Now, the negatives. I told you, these guys all come with positives. They all come with negatives. The negatives, obviously, he comes from the Andy Reid tree. This is a guy that's been under Andy Reid with Philadelphia and with Kansas City. So I don't know if the whole Matt Nagy experience may have kind of tainted the whole Andy Reid treat for Chicago. So I'm not sure. That's one negative that I kind of put out there. The other thing is once Frank Reich left, he was the offensive coordinator with the Eagles. And once Frank Reich left and took the Colts position, the offense with the Eagles started getting a little more stagnant. And it just started kind of the production just kind of dropping. And a lot of people from Philadelphia are saying, because Frank Reich was the guy really designing that offense and doing all the creative stuff on offense that I just talked about, right? So that's something you have to take in consideration, because once Reich left, that offense in Philadelphia, it wasn't as productive as it was when he was there. So there's some things you got to take, the good with the bad. But I do like the fact that he's won a Super Bowl. He's worked with mobile quarterbacks before, and he's an aggressive play caller.
So I ran a poll of the people in the chat room, and 83% said no to Doug Peterson. And the reason why, according to comments, is that people are saying it's Nagy all over again. It's the Andy Reid tree.
Yep.
So why would you want to do this all over again? And then I will add to that he left Philadelphia under some ugly circumstances where, do you remember that game where Jalen Hurts, who, by the way, Jalen Hurts, remember I wanted him?
Yeah.
There's second round draft.
It's not sold on him though.
Yeah, well, he's going to turn out to be a better than average quarterback, a decent quarterback. But anyway, Peterson, when he was there and they benched Carson Wentz, they gave Jalen Hurts the reins, and then they bench him, with like no forewarning whatsoever. It got really ugly those last couple of months for Peterson at Philadelphia, and he was nasty with the media. He's just an irritable guy. I don't know about him, Danny. I just don't.
Yeah, and that's why I point out one of the negatives about him is he comes from that Andy Reid tree but he's a guy, as opposed to Nagy, who says, this is my offense, and I don't care what player you give me, what kind of quarterback you give me, he's going to run my offense. I saw Peterson in that Super Bowl run be able to change and alter his offense again. And then now you offset it with, all right, how much was that? Was Peterson? Was that Frank Reich? Obviously, he's a head coach. He has to approve all these changes. So that's something that I like. So that tells me that he's a guy that can adjust to the talent he has on offense and then bring out the best of that player. And that's something that Matt Nagy has failed the Bears in terms of this year and previous years, where he didn't take what the player does best and put him in a position to succeed. He said, this is my offense, and I'm going to run my damn offense the way I like it. So,
all right. Let's move on to your second guy on the list, and that is none other than Josh McDaniels, the former head coach of the Broncos, multiple Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator with the New England Patriots.
Obviously, everyone knows Josh McDaniels. Some people love him, some people hate him. 20-year NFL assistant. And if you ask me, midway through the season, would I want Josh McDaniels here as a Bears head coach? I'd say no. And the reason why I'd say no is because first of all, that stint in Denver, that 2-year stint in Denver was a disaster. He was 11-17, under 40% in terms of win percentage. But he was a guy that had too much control there. And obviously got into a fight with Cutler, and then Cutler was traded away. Obviously, the Bears took advantage of that. But then he used a first-round pick on Tim Tebow. I don't get that part of it. So I'd say no. And then, but for me, the final straw was the Colts thing, where he basically agreed to accept the Colts head coaching job. The Patriots were going through that Super Bowl run that year, and then after the Super Bowl, he was going to go ahead and accept it. But then all of a sudden, at the last minute, he left the Colts basically hanging there at the altar and said, "I'm not taking the position." Now that the Colts are stuck there, they did they went ahead and just kind of restarted their head coaching search, and they got locked out because they got Frank Reich, and they haven't looked back since then. So, but that to me was like the final straw. But then comes this year, and the way he has brought along Mac Jones, and that's what I've been talking about in terms of with Justin Fields, is you bring him along, you give him a little bit of the offense, you give him things he can work on, plays that are simple to him, things that he doesn't have to get confused and thinking about out there. Max protect, don't put your tight end 101 gets a premier, pass rusher off the edge. And they slowly but surely brought Mac Jones along. And now all of a sudden, look at Mac Jones. They give him more and more each week. And now Mac Jones is he's not fully developed as an NFL quarterback, but he's on his way there. And I like the way that they took care of that. So I just kind of, again, with Justin Fields as my centerpiece, would Josh McDaniels come in here and be able to work with Justin Fields and build an offense around him. Now, again, I need to know who his defensive coordinator is going to be. I need to know what his plan is there. Obviously, I wouldn't give him the control he had in Denver, because we saw how that turned out to be a disaster. And the other thing with the Colts, turns out the rumors are that he had inside knowledge in terms of Andrew Luck retiring prior to everyone else finding out. So that's why he kind of left and said, I don't want to start from scratch here. So that's the reason. That's an excuse. I want to give him an excuse, but that's the reason why he might have backed out. So that's why I've kind of let up on Josh McDaniels. But again, just seeing him, we saw that game against against Buffalo. It was like, treacherous wind and crazy rain, and they just ran the ball down the throat of the Buffalo Bills. And then, the following week where they're playing against another opponent and they have to pass it 40 times, they'll pass it 40 times. I want a offensive creator that's going to put my guys in the position to succeed, but also he's going to be different. He's going to be different based off of the opponent, based off of weather conditions, based off of other things. And that's something that I saw this year from Josh McDaniels.
All right. One of the things in his to his credit is that there are reports that he was in love with Justin Fields, that Fields was his favorite quarterback of all 5 quarterbacks that were coming out. Not that he didn't, dislike any of the other quarterbacks, but that Fields was number one. So that is good. And the majority of the people, my computer gave out with my poll, but the majority of the people agree with you. There's about 68% that say that Josh McDaniel would be good, but some of the people are really against him for a lot of those same reasons that you mentioned. Like PZ said, he ruined his credibility with the Indy job and so forth. And somebody said if he thought that Tebow should be the number 1 quarterback, then that immediately that's 4,000 glories.
Again, he was young then. He was young then, and he was given way too much power in Denver. He basically ran. He was like a GM de facto GM / head coach, and I think that's where he just kind of went crazy and it burned. It crashed and burned quickly in Denver. And I think, remember Bill Belichick, the Patriots weren't his first job. And Pete Carroll, the Patriots weren't, the Seattle Seahawks weren't his first job. Some of these guys get fired, and then their second time around is when they kind of learn from their mistakes and they get better. That is at least my hope with Josh McDaniels. Now, I think he's a guy that can build an offense around the strengths of his players, So, for example, if he came into the season with Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson, I think he could build. I have confidence that he could build an offense that could put up points, that can move the ball on a more consistent basis than what Matt Nagy has done. So that's why I kind of want to bring him here and then give him more weapons and then see what he can do with that. But again, his thing is, who is your defensive coordinator and what's your plan there on defense?
4,000 says, Danny, the only thing you've sold me on is that he can be a great offensive coordinator for the Bears, not a head coach. So, yeah, and Aaron brings up a good point here that the Belichick coaching tree has not been very successful in the NFL.
It hasn't. But I think Brian Flores has been doing okay in Miami. They're a team that started off 2-7 or something like that, and they end up winning 7 in a row. So I think he's a guy that's kind of come back. And then Jared Mayo, the inside linebacker, the former linebacker for the Patriots, is a guy that around the league circles is getting a lot of praise. A lot of teams. Philadelphia actually interviewed him last year as just a 2-year stint as an assistant coach, and they interviewed him for the head coaching job, and they were really impressed. But they ended up going with Nick Sirianni. So I understand Josh McDaniels. Like I said earlier, half the room is going to love him, half the room is going to hate him. Just a guy that initially this year I would say no way, keep him away from my team. But now he's got me thinking. Of maybe this is a guy that deserves a second chance, and a guy that I like in terms of his opinion. Michael Lombardi says that he's a guy that has potential to be a very good head coach in the right situation. So.
Michael Lombardi, who was right about Mitchell Trubisky, by the way, when he said you could find him at a bargain Filene's basement store, quarterback like him. All right, Jim Caldwell is your next guy, the former head coach of the Colts and Lions, and he took the Colts to the Super Bowl. People forget that.
Yep, 2009, he took the Colts to the Super Bowl. This is a guy that's been out of the league for 2 years, so that right there is a little bit a little scary for me. But he's a guy that, man, whenever he's been head coach, the one thing that the players love him, the players play hard for him. And he's won. Out of the 7 seasons he's been a head coach, he's only had 2 losing seasons. One was with the Colts, and that was when Peyton Manning got hurt. He went 2-14, and he coached in Detroit for 4 years. Guys, only had 1 losing season. Right, his last 2 years in Detroit, he was 9-7 both years, and he got fired. So I think this is a guy that can. And he went to the Baltimore Ravens and was a successful offensive coordinator there as well. So he's a guy that knows offense. That I think, he's a little bit up there in age, right? So you mentioned earlier in the show that George McCaskey's out there talking to Tony Dungy about possible recommendations for maybe a GM or vice president. If Tony Dungy has George McCaskey's ear, I'm sure he's going to be talking about Jim Caldwell there in terms of trying to bring him in at least for an interview. So I know he's getting an interview with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I think this is a guy, again, he's been out of the year 2 years, out of the league for 2 years. That's a little bit of a concern for me. The other thing that concerns me is if you go back and take a look at the quarterbacks he's worked with, it's guys like Peyton Manning, Joe Flacco, Matthew Stafford, Ryan Fitzpatrick. These are all predominantly pocket passing quarterbacks. He hasn't had a guy like Justin Fields that's an athlete that can it's mobile, a dual threat. So and part of my interview process would how would you what kind of offense would you build around Justin Fields? And that would be something that I need to have him answer to me and kind of tell me. But the guy's been successful. The guy knows offense. He's the guy that I think should probably deserves at least an interview.
Yeah, he definitely deserves an interview. There's no doubt about it. Now, when I had the NFC North bar room open, I used to listen to a lot of his press conferences, and towards the last couple of months, boy, oh boy, he was being vilified by Detroit fans and some of the Detroit media. There was an incident, maybe if Don Burr is in here, maybe he can remind me. There was an incident where he didn't come to the verbal protection of couple of his players or one of his players, and so he was criticized for that. And it was too bad because the guy, he had a winning record at Detroit, but he just didn't seem to have good press conference skills, and so sometimes that can really hurt a coach unless he's Bill Belichick.
Well, that can hurt a coach with his perception with the media, but doesn't hurt a coach with his players. And from what you watch Jim Caldwell's teams, the players play hard. Even that 2-14 Colts team, I mean, to the end, they were playing hard for him. So that's a good sign in terms of seeing how these players love this guy and in terms of loving this coach. So again, with him, obviously, how would you, Justin Fields, what kind of offense would you put around him? How would you build around him is one of the key questions I want answered. And again, being an offensive guy, who was your defensive coordinator? Who are you going to bring in? What's your plan there on the other side of the ball? So, there's a lot to like about him. There's also some question marks you have to have as well. But, I think this guy you got to bring in and just kind of at least hear him out and see what he has to say.
I unfortunately I can't get my poll to work because sounds
like a personal problem.
Good one. But based on the verbal comments here, it seems like there's not a lot of enthusiasm for Caldwell as the head coach, maybe as an offensive coordinator. What do you think about him as an OC?
See, that's the thing too. Is like you can bring these guys in, especially like guys like Caldwell, or probably not Peterson, but Caldwell. Guys who've been out of the league for a couple of years, and interview them. And if you like them in terms of what they're talking about, but don't quite want to give them the head coaching job, you go with someone else. When you hire a head coach, hey, who's your offensive coordinator? Jim Caldwell could be a guy you can talk to, and then you can possibly bring that guy in as an offensive coordinator. So that could happen.
All right. Now this
could happen with my next candidate.
There you go. And he is, of course, Todd Bowles. A lot of people are angry that you don't have Jim Harbaugh on your list, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Tell us about Todd Bowles.
Right. So again, Todd Bowles, experienced, 8-year NFL player, 27-year coach. This guy's worked with coaches like Bruce Arians, Mike Holmgren, Bill Parcells, Andy Reid. So he's off of those trees, if you will. A guy who's well respected in terms of defensive coordinator, the guy that once he comes in, damn well the defense is taken care of. Defense is going to be very, very damn good for the Bears if he's your head coach. My question with Todd Bowles, and that's something I've highlighted in the little note I gave you there, is who is his offensive coordinator and who is his quarterback coach? Because I need a plan from Todd Bowles, because Todd Bowles needs to bring in a successor, right? So, for example, if he takes the Bears job and he brings in a young hotshot offensive coordinator, within a year or two, the NFL team's going to come calling, and there goes the offensive coordinator. Now, what do you do now? So that's why I want to know his plan on offense. Defensively, I know you got it, Todd Bowles. I know this defense is going to be top 10, top 5, no problem. But offensively, what's your plan? Who's your coordinator? Who's your quarterback coach? And then if your coordinator is gone, what's your plan there? What are you going to do there? And that's what I need to know, because I don't want Justin Fields learning a new offense in every 2-3 years when he loses an offensive coordinator. So that's key to me with Todd Bowles. He's a well-respected coach. Everywhere he goes, the players love him. I think the Jets, his record was horrible. There was 24-40, but he had no consistent quarterback play. Chan Gailey was his offensive coordinator. So I think those are some of the issues there with Todd Bowles. I think he's a guy we talked about earlier. guys who fail initially as head coaches come back the second time around could be successful. I think Todd Bowles is a guy, because of the amount of respect he commands and demands from his players. I think if he gets the right offensive coordinator, I think he's a guy that can be successful.
Very good. And for the record, Greg Gabriel is really, really high on Todd Bowles, and I think he's like you on the Buffalo guy whose name I always mispronounce.
Brian Dable.
Brian Dable. I think he's soured on Brian Dable a little bit, but he still has him on his list of people that should be interviewed. But I think it's safe for me to say that Todd Bowles is at the top of Greg Gabriel's list. So you guys are thinking alike. So tell me about Jim Harbaugh, because there's a lot of people in the chat who really like him.
Yeah, that's my wild card. I put him on the list I gave Aldo. So he's my wild card, because I just don't think Jim Harbaugh is going to come back to the NFL. That from what I could gather, all these rumors were just a ploy by his agent to go ahead and get Michigan, renegotiating his contract. Because remember, last year he took a pay cut in order to keep his job at Michigan. So now after going to the Final Four, I think that would, I think he's trying to sub up some competition. But if Jim Harbaugh was to be brought in here as the head coach, I wouldn't mind it. You can find worse head coaches, because I have a feeling that Vic Fangio, who probably is going to lose his job in Denver, might come back and be the defensive coordinator, which I would love to see. And then obviously whoever the rest of staff is going to be, we'll see there. But I think he's a guy that gets that Bears tradition. I think, Aldo, you'll be happy. You'll see the fire and the passion on the sidelines that you've been dying for from a coach. So I think that might be the McCaskey's home run, because I think they might then get their fan base excited about Harbaugh coming back to town. Now, if he had done it 2 years ago with his struggles in Michigan, maybe not. But coming off a Final Four appearance in the college football playoffs, this might be something that generates some interest. But I want to see again, who are his offensive, who's his staff here with the Bears if he's coming here to be the head coach. And it's going to cost a lot of money, because if rumors are to be believed, Mark Davis is willing to pay him a lot of money to go out there in Las Vegas and be the coach of the Raiders. So we'll see.
Well, and I do think that has to be part of the Bears' plan moving forward, is that money is no object when it comes to the head coach, for a lot of reasons. Because first of all, you want a really good, high qualified coach. Number two, the whole move to Arlington Heights is going to necessitate there being a surge of interest and confidence and inspiration.
Yep.
And a quality head coach with a big name and a big price behind him is going to help make that Arlington Heights stadium a reality. So,
Yep.
If they're going to skimp on paying a head coach, they're going to bring in a head coach because they're still paying Nagy or whatever the hell it is. Then we're doomed.
And that's why another thing is you need to bring in an established guy who's had success in the league, whether it's as a head coach or as an defensive or offensive coordinator. All these guys have been to Super Bowls as either head coaches or offensive assistants or defensive assistants, and have won Super Bowls. Other than Caldwell, I don't know if Caldwell was with the Ravens when he won as offensive coordinator when he won the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. I'm not sure there, but they've all been and coached in a Super Bowl. So that's the key. They know how to get there. They know how to what it takes to be in the final game there. So and they have the experience, and that's why I think that's what you need now. I agree with you. I don't think you can bring in someone a first time head coach and kind of sell that now to the fan base. And by the way, we're going to be building this huge stadium. Dish out the money for these this PSL licenses and all that stuff. So I think they're going to go a well-known or a guy that has a good reputation around the league in terms of a head coach. That's my guess.
My man Alex Sims wants to know what you think about Joe Brady, who was released as the offensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers in early December. What do you think about Brady maybe coming to the Bears as an OC?
Joe Brady was a guy that was like the flavor du jour last year. I mean, he came from LSU where he had all those weapons and Joe Burrow, and then all of a sudden he got the offensive coordinator position with the Carolina Panthers, and all these guys on ESPN are talking about this guy's going to light up the scoreboard and all this stuff, and it was a big cluster. It was a big cluster. The guy he got fired midway through the season. He even had head coaching interviews last year. That's how ridiculous it was. Yeah. So for me, he's not a head coaching candidate in terms of offensive coordinator. I think that he still needs to kind of at least come in and prove himself to me. So maybe a quarterback's coach, maybe someone as an offensive assistant, I could bring him in, but not as a guy, as an offensive coordinator, because obviously he failed there at Carolina.
Yeah, he says he wants to stay in the NFL, and insiders have told ESPN that it's probable that he is going to stay in the NFL, but not impossible that he could return back to college football in some head coaching capacity. So he's fielding offers. He's reportedly already started to talk to several people about a job. The factor says Joe Brady's offense looked like the Bears' offense under Teddy Bridgewater.
The Carolina offense was putrid this past season.
Mm-hmm. Kellen Moore is a name that's being bandied about a lot in the chat room. I got to tell you, with all of the weapons that the Cowboys have, the fact that they're not scoring 40, 50 points a game tells me that Kellen Moore may not know what he's doing. Of course, he might be hamstrung by one of the dumbest coaches in NFL history or recent history, Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy has really shown how his clock management is just horrible, and maybe why Aaron Rodgers couldn't stand him in Green Bay. But anyway, for me, Kellen Moore is a guy that shows some promise, but for me, he's just too raw yet. I still want him to be an offensive coordinator for a little bit longer. And again, you mentioned the weapons he has over in Dallas, and they're still struggling at times to score points. So I think Kellen Moore is a guy that I'm not. He's too raw for me yet. I don't think he's a guy that I want to bring in here. Again, talking about bringing in a guy that can build an offense around Justin Fields. I don't have the confidence right now that Kellen Moore can do it. Now, I do have two names on my list here in terms of guys with no prior head coaching experience. And if you want to continue there, you want to take some more questions here, Aldo?
No, go right ahead.
All right, so the one guy that jumps off to me right away is Kevin O'Connell. He's the offensive coordinator with the Rams. And now you're going to say, all right, the Rams, Sean McVay, he doesn't even call plays. True, Sean McVay calls all the plays with the Rams. But the one thing with Kevin O'Connell is he's a guy that does everything else the offensive coordinator does, meaning that he does the install, he does the scheming, he does the scripting of the first 15 or 16 plays. It's only McVay calls them during the game, so he doesn't have the play calling experience that you want him to come in as. But as a guy that comes from a system in terms of working with a Sean McVay, he's worked with Jay Gruden, he's worked with Chip Kelly, so he's a guy that comes with already having some knowledge in terms of how to run an NFL offense that can be productive, an offense that can utilize a kid that's got some movement skills like a Justin Fields. So and then just kind of take a look at the Sean McVay tree, if you will. I know Matt LaFleur's got Aaron Rodgers, the MVP, so there's still the jury is out on him, but his record as a head coach is pretty good. And the other guy that really kind of impressed me was Zach Taylor. Now I know he's got tons of weapons at Cincinnati, and he's got Joe Burrow. But again, we're talking about a young quarterback. We're talking about bringing weapons in for him and designing an offense that's going to be explosive. And that's the kind of the thing we're looking for here. So a guy like Kevin O'Connell, who's only 36 years old, who's been an offensive coordinator under some of these, like McVay and Jay Gruden and all these guys, can come in if you're looking for a first-time head coach with the possibility of creating and designing an offense that's going to help Justin Fields flourish and produce something explosive on the scoreboard as well. So he's a guy that I would keep an eye on as well. But again, my preference is to bring in an experienced former head coach. But if you're going to go the coordinator route, Kevin O'Connell is the first guy I would talk to.
Excellent stuff. So
got one more too if you want.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you do. Go ahead.
Yeah,
please.
So I got one more. So if you do want to go defense, right, for a first-time head coach, and I've brought this guy name up before on the show, and it's Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator from the Giants. He's a guy that he's been coaching in NFL since 2009 for 13 years. He's coached anything from linebackers to defensive line for the Patriots. He's coached defensive line for the Giants. He's coached linebackers for the Green Bay. So he's been around for he's got tons of experience, well respected. He's a guy that the Jets actually requested to interview last year for their head coaching job, but the Giants denied it and gave him a contract extension. Actually gave him the title of assistant head coach as well. So that's how much they respected him and he wanted him to stay in New York. And I think he's a guy that he's passionate. He's a guy that presses his players hard. He pushes them hard. He sets high expectations for his players, and they're always looking to try to make him happy and try to achieve that. So as opposed to, remember, with these guys, with these first year guys who are coordinators and not being head coaches, the main thing is, can they command a room? Because they could probably command their linebackers, if they're a position coach, they could probably command their defense if they're defensive coordinator. But now you got to command 53 guys plus 16 or 17 practice squad players. So you want a guy who's got presence, a guy that can get respect from every single player on the football team. And I think Graham has shown that ability to be that leader type, right? He's got a solid defensive concept. I think, again, defensively, the Bears will be in a good shape there. But then, just like with Todd Bowles, just like with some of the other guys I've talked about, who is your offensive coordinator? What is your game plan in terms of your OC, your quarterback coach, and how are you going to build this offense around Justin Fields? Those are the main questions I would kind of pry and trying to find out from Patrick Graham what he has going on there.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. All right, I want to quickly address a couple of other things. One of the things you and I talked about pre-show that I'd like to bounce off the audience here is the possibility that Ryan Pace is going to remain in the Bears organization in some type of vice president of football operations position, and that he's going to bring in a general manager, and that general manager could be Champ Kelly.
Right.
What do you think about that?
And then we talked about it pre-show, and the reason why that name came up to me is because I saw somewhere where Champ Kelly was out scouting the Georgia Michigan game, and Champ Kelly's on the pro player side. He's not on the college side. So that tells me that either A, he's being moved over there, or B, he's being given the position of GM, where now Ryan Pace is over him. He's the GM, and then him and Ryan Pace hire the next head coach. So that's what kind of got things working in my head, and maybe because he's a guy that's very popular around the NFL, Champ Kelly. Whenever there's a GM opening, he's always one or two names that you always see him come up as Champ Kelly. He's a guy that came over from the Denver Broncos. I forgot how long it was, but Pace was able to bring him over from the Denver Broncos. Again, well respected when he was with Denver, and very well respected still here with the Bears. But again, he's on a pro player side, not on the college scouting side. So the fact that he was out there scouting Michigan and Georgia, I'm thinking maybe this guy is going to be either switched over or probably even move up to general manager.
Yeah, I think he's an intriguing candidate. And on Past the Mic, a new show that we released today, and I urge everyone to take a listen to Peggy Kaczynski's interview with Sam Rappaport. She's an NFL executive who does a lot of work with ensuring that the pipeline is robust with minority candidates, and she's also working on programs about women working as scouts and so forth. The Bears actually have a female scout, which a lot of people don't know because they have been kind of keeping it secret, not secret, but they don't want her to do a lot of interviews and add more pressure to her. They just want her to go to work. So, but nonetheless, my point is Sam Rappaport said that Champ Kelly is going to be a general manager this year or next year. So when she said this year, I was like, wait a minute, Ryan Pace, Champ Kelly. I could see that happening. As an organization, first and foremost, you really should look for opportunities to promote from within. Now, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do here, but every organization should look at who are their candidates in-house before they start looking out of house. I'm not saying they shouldn't look out of house either, but they might have some good people in-house. There have been good coaches, assistant coaches that have left the organization. The guy with the Chargers now, Brandon Staley, is a perfect example. I wouldn't mind if that guy was the next head coach of the Chicago Bears, but we let him get away to the Rams, and now he's with the Chargers as their head coach. So
there's also been people in the front office that have been successful. So George Penn, who's now the GM of the Broncos, was a scout with the Bears. Joe Douglas. Chris Ballard was a scout with the Bears, and now he's a successful GM with the Colts. Joe Douglas was a guy, he was here with the Bears, now he's a GM of the Jets. So if you have a talent evaluator that you feel confident in, that you can promote and make him the general manager and have him maybe help you, resurrect this team, I'm all for it. My only thing is, again, he was on a pro player side. What free agents, what pro players of the Bears acquired that we can just kind of stay in there. All right. And again, how much of that was Champ Kelly? How much of that was the coaching staff that was in place? Their recommendations, who they wanted. So we'll see. And then with Ryan Pace bumping up, does Ryan Pace still have now overall, reign over the entire football operations? Will that suffice, the fan base? Is that something that the McCaskies want to go ahead and kind of live with? That's another thing you have to think about as well.
Well, and we'll share with the audience. Another thing that you and I talked about pre-show is the new paradigm in football management now is that you have the coach and the general manager both reporting to the president, vice president of football operations. And there's a lot of benefits to that. We've seen some successful organizations do that. The Green Bay Packers have been doing it now for the last 3 years. And I know that when they first announced it, I was mocking. Oh, this is ridiculous. There's going to be a lot of infighting and so forth. But really the benefits is that now you've got one guy overseeing the two most important people in the organization, the person responsible for player acquisition through the draft and free agency. And he's also overlooking the head coach and the decisions that head coach is making on the football field. Do you like that idea, Danny?
I do like that idea. I do like that architecture or that format if you want. But my thing is, and I'm not an all out on Ryan Pace guy. I mean, I'm kind of like on the fence with him. I think he's done some very good things, and I think he's done some obviously horrible things. Mitch Trubisky, that'd be one of them. But But then, if you're McCaskies, are you going to sell that as Ryan Pace being the hierarchy of your football operations now? Will the fan base take that?
They sold Pace, keeping Pace and Nagy last year when there was a thunderstorm of people, saying, get those guys out of here. So I think that they might try to sell it. That, there is a kind of stubbornness to George McCaskey. If he really likes Ryan Pace, as all of us have been saying that he does, he entrusted him with the $100 million makeover of Hallis Hall. And he's sort of been grooming him, not necessarily to take over Ted Phillips's place, but been grooming him to move up in the organization, have more responsibilities. Maybe he's going to figure out a way to do it. I don't know, man.
That'll be interesting. I just think that if Kelly moves up into the GM position, and as long as the talent acquisition portion of his duties are good, like he gets good draft picks, and gets signs good free agents, and they make that right hire at coaching staff. I'm telling you, this is a team that could go potentially from 7-10 this year to 10-7 next year. I mean, they have that much talent. We've seen those quick turnarounds if you make the right hires in the NFL. So that it's not out of the realm of possibility here, guys. Just get the right coaching staff, get the right talent in with what you have currently on the roster. I think this team could win 9-10 games next year.
Don Burr wants me to ask you, what do you think about these three guys? Deuce Staley, Aaron Glenn, and Aubrey Pleasant. I don't even know who Aubrey Pleasant is.
He's a former defensive lineman or linebacker for the Ravens. These are all guys that are on the Detroit Lions staff right now. So Deuce Staley, obviously the running back coach, has been a running back coach for a while. I think actually Matt Nagy tried to bring him here to the Bears. He chose to go with Matt Campbell over at Detroit. So, and then Aaron Glenn, obviously a former NFL player, cornerback, now is a defensive coordinator, and Aubrey Pleasant, I believe, might be a defensive line coach over at the Lions. But in terms of what they're doing, I mean, obviously, I think the Lions are a long way away. They're building talent, and they're playing hard for their coach, for Coach Campbell. So, in terms of these guys as potential head coaching candidates, I'm not sure if that's what Don is asking, but I don't see them right now as guys that are even being mentioned as possibilities for even interviews around the league and other positions. So I think they might be a little bit far away. Glenn was a position coach, I believe, with the Jets before he took the defensive coordinator position with the Lions. So I think they need to be in their position a little bit longer and have some success before you start seeing these guys being brought up as head coaching candidates.
Alex wants to know, would you trade a day 2 pick for Calvin Ridley?
No. I need to know on talent alone, yes, but I need to know what's going on with Calvin Ridley. There's a lot. There's some stuff. If it's mental health or whatnot. Talent wise, yeah, he's worth a 2nd round pick or 3rd round pick, but he's a guy that could bring some of that big playability here on offense. But I need to know a lot of what's going on, and because of those question marks, that I'm not sure. What if he has a relapse, or again, I don't want to speculate what his issue was,
right?
But just too many question marks, and I can't give up 2nd or 3rd round picks for a guy that I have a lot of question marks on. Even though the talent is superb.
Right. Mental illness is the most difficult thing, or mental health. I should put it this way. Mental health is the most difficult thing to judge in players, but it's also one of the most important things. You want a guy who is really authentically hungry to be a great football player, who has all of the personality traits you're looking for in a football player. And sometimes on the surface, those players might have it, but inside they're battling demons and they may not be dependable. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't give these guys a chance. I think you should, but you need somebody to be totally open and honest about what their problems are. You try to get them help, and you try to get them on the football field for success.
If they're on medication, how does that affect their football, playing abilities? If there's a relapse, they get off the medication, what are the consequences there? It's a lot of questions, a lot of things you have to get into. But he was playing great for the Falcons, and Atlanta is not a hotbed or pressure in terms of the media or anything like that. So if that was a lot for him to take, I just how would Chicago be in terms of the media pressure, the spotlight on him, and all that stuff. So I just I wouldn't waste or not. I shouldn't say waste. I wouldn't give up a day 2 pick on a kid. Like I said, talent, yes, he's worth it, but just too many question marks for me.
What do you think about Ryan Pace calling his old buddy Mickey Loomis and say, "Hey, what would you want for Sean Payton in terms of a trade?"
That's actually been bandied about. That there's scuttlebutt that Sean Payton, knowing that the Saints they're in cap hell for another long time. They have no quarterback on. I mean, other than if you think James Winston's going to come back and play, Taysom Hill, that's not a quarterback. He's just more like a gadget player here and there. But quarterback situation looks dire. Michael Thomas, the right receiver, he might need another surgery, I think, or had another surgery, and God knows what his status is for next season. He wasn't happy with the organization prior to this whole ordeal going down. So if you're Sean Payton and you want to come back home, and you have a chance to a guy like Justin Fields, if you're GM with Ryan Pace, that could be something that could be enticing for Sean Payton. Now, in terms of the Saints, what would the Saints want? I'm assuming they're going to want some compensation, some draft compensation. Now, obviously, the Bears don't have a first-round pick. Now, would I give up a second-round pick for Sean Payton? Probably not. I don't think I would do that, just because of the fact that you have so many needs on his offense, and I think you could probably go and get yourself another head coach that could give you the amount of success. Again, Sean Payton, we've seen him succeed with Drew Brees as his quarterback. Right? We have not. I mean, there was that little small sample with Teddy Bridgewater there, where he went on like I think they went 5-1 or something like that. But we haven't really seen Sean Payton really be a great head coach without a potential Hall of Fame quarterback on leading his offense. So that's something we kind of need to see it develop and happen. So I don't know if I'd give up a second round pick for him. Now, if you want to talk about a day 3 pick or maybe a future third, maybe like a 5th round this year and a future 3rd or something like that with some stipulations, fine, no problem. I would love to see Sean Payton come in here and see what he could do with this quarterback and some of the weapons they can get here on offense.
That would be a home run. And when we talk about the best coach out there available, if Sean Payton was available, he would be the best coach available.
My home run would be Mike Tomlin. If there's a way they could pry Mike Tomlin away from Pittsburgh, that would be the guy I would want. But that's a pipe dream, I think. I'm
with you there. J-Rock wants to make sure that you were talking about Brian Callahan and not Zach Taylor, because you mentioned Zach Taylor. He's the head coach of the Bengals. No,
I was talking about Kevin O'Connell, who is a current offensive coordinator for the Rams, being a candidate. And I said, the Zach Taylor is an example of offensive coordinator that's worked under Sean McVay that didn't call plays when he was there, but yet did all the things that Kevin O'Connell is doing now, which is scripting the offense, scheming up the offense and all this stuff and design and everything like that. But just it's Sean McVay calling the plays. So, him, Zach Taylor and Matt LaFleur are 2 guys that worked under Sean McVay as offensive coordinators. The same thing that Kevin O'Connell is doing now. And they're having success here in the NFL in terms of their high-powered offenses. Again, they both have pretty damn good quarterbacks. I think the Bears potentially have a pretty damn good quarterback here as well. So bringing a guy like Kevin O'Connell to kind of run that system is what I was looking at to do.
Very good. A number of comments regarding the center position. So I will just meld them all together and ask you, how do you solve the center problem with the Chicago Bears?
We've discussed it. You and I discussed this on previous shows. I would sign James Daniels and move him to center.
Yep.
That's what I would do.
I'm with you. The guy with the biggest ass on the Chicago Bears should be playing center. I mean, this guy has got a huge butt, and God bless him for that, because you need that when you're on the offensive line.
Right. And I think we've seen him kind of play well at right guard and also struggle a lot at right guard. But and again, this is a kid that came out of Iowa as one that either the top, if not the top, one of the top two centers in the draft. And I was excited when they got him. They shipped him to left guard 2 years ago. Last year, before he got hurt, he was playing damn good football at left guard. Then he got hurt off for the year. This year they moved him over to right guard. And, we've seen some good plays. We've seen some bad plays for him from at right guard. So, but for me, he's my future starting center. I would sign him to a contract in employment center.
Alex wants to know, a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, you talked about Eddie Goldman being a potential building block. You were upset. Well, since then, I think that building block has started to crumble a little bit, because, man, it's just not really good, what we're seeing.
Yeah, from his play lately, it's just really been up in the air. Now, again, he was dealing with COVID for a little bit. Is there any sort of lingering effects from there? Obviously, we don't know that kind of stuff. If he's injured, you're playing with an injury. We don't know. But just his play has been inconsistent, and it has been disappointing, at least for me. Watching his tape, and because I know he's better than that. I know he's done better than that. There was a couple of plays against the Giants, I believe, was where it was at that near safety, where he did a nice swim move on the guard or the center, and he got in there and kind of disrupted the backfield. And then another play came in there and made a tackle. It was almost a safety on Booker, the running back. So, so he flashes still, so you see it. So it's just the consistency. And I'm not sure off the top of my head what his salary is, but you would want him to be a consistent pillar on that defensive line. And if it's something that the new coaching staff doesn't think after watching their tape. Remember, these guys have no history with him. The new staff that's coming in has no history with Eddie Goldman. They're going to go off of his tape. And if they're going to say this tape and the consistencies on his tape, they might just say, you know what, we're going to save that $8-9 million, whatever his salary is, and move a different direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's scheduled to make his cap hit is going to be almost $12 million next season. So that cap of $5 million. So that's $6 million you'd be saving if he was gone. He also mentioned, Alex did Cody Whitehair. Are you ready to say goodbye to Cody Whitehair? I personally think one more year with Cody Whitehair, and then you move him.
Yeah, especially if you're going to bring in who's going to be your left tackle. If you're bringing a rookie left tackle, you're going to want a veteran left guard next to him. You don't want another, breaking in another guy or a rookie or a new player to the system and at left guard. So I would like to keep Whitehair at least for one more year, especially at left tackle. I want to see who my left tackle is going to be. I don't think it's going to be Tevin Jenkins personally. I don't think he's going to be playing there. I don't think it's going to be Larry Borum either. So I think they're either going to go and sign a veteran from free agency, or they're going to get a high draft pick and bring in a mid-tier veteran and have him compete with that rookie for that starting position. So that's what I think is going to happen there at left tackle. But yeah, I would hold on to Whitehair for at least one more season.
What do you think about what Troy says? That he would trade all of the McCaskies. There's like 4 of them on the board of directors. Trade them all except for Virginia for Sean Payton and a 2023 pick.
Why would the Saints even make that trade?
Mickey Loomis. I don't know.
Could you see the McCaskies walking around on Bourbon Street looking around like, what do we do here?
Mickey Loomis would probably make that trade because he needs their money, and they got a lot of money, man. There was
real quick, I just want to bring up something to all the people that hated Charles Leno Jr. Wanted him out of town. He went over to Washington and he just signed a 3-year, $37 million contract. And I'm not saying he's an all-pro left tackle. All I said, you and I, Aldo, were on the record saying that he was serviceable. He's a guy that was serviceable at left tackle. He wasn't going to probably not going to make another Pro Bowl. But again, just to show you, he goes out to Washington, earns himself a 3-year, $37 million contract. Left tackle is a position that's very, obviously very, very valuable for a team. And yeah, he's not great, but you know what? He's there every damn snap, every damn game, every damn week. And that means something to an offensive coordinator and offensive coach.
Yep. I sent him and his wife a personal message saying, congratulations. I'm so happy for you guys. That guy works hard. I know he took a few plays off here and there. I know he got burned by a safety on a blitz and so forth. He had some bad plays. You know what? 99% of the left tackles in this league have bad plays. And I know people are going to say, oh, Ryan Fitzpatrick's season is over because of Charles Leno. You know what? You add it all up, and there's more pluses than the minuses with Charles Leno. And if they would have kept Charles Leno and said, you know what, we're still going to get Peters because he's out there fishing, he wants to play. You could have asked Peters to move into the middle of the line because he played there last season. He played a lot of left guard. So the line would have been much better with Leno and Peters and Daniels. So I don't, the whole Leno thing, I hope that's put to rest. I think he got an unfair knock here. All right. So what else do we want to talk about? Oh, one other thing here that I starred. Dark Vaders wants to know, when are we going to start talking about the draft? Do you want to let him know? We
were just talking about our pre-show meeting here. So Neil Shopczynski and Aldo and I, and we're talking about the draft on tap, and obviously the East-West Shrine game's coming up, and then the Senior Bowl's coming up. So our first draft on tap is going to be January 26th. Aldo, is that what we agree upon? Yeah. So our first on tap is going to be on January 26th. And basically we're going to do a quick review of last year's draft, the Bears draft, and some of the players and some of the evaluations that we, Neil and I have hit on, some of them we got wrong. And looking at the rookie season so far. So, it'll be a fun show to kind of start off the draft season with. And then obviously once we get into the East-West Shrine game and the Senior Bowl, we'll have updates on those rosters and those practices as well. And then it's going to be full tilt draft. And I think this is something this year the executive producer here, Mr. Aldo Gandia, has a little twist. He wants to do the draft on tap. Remember last year's outline, he was Ryan Pace and we were his scouts. But since we don't know if Ryan Pace is going to have a job after Monday, we're going to have to come up with a different theme here. So Aldo's in the in the little war room there, drawing up some ideas here in terms of how we're going to play this out. But yeah, we're looking forward to breaking down prospects again. And we're looking forward to have some great guests to help us, get you guys all prepared for the NFL draft.
You see my Twitter handle there at Barroom Network. If you have any ideas on how we should proceed with Draft on Tap this season, send them over to me as a DM on Draft on Tap. I'd be happy to look at them. So I'm doing a little crowdsourcing here. Any ideas that you have, I'd love to steal them and apply them to the show. The ones that I like, by the way. But we're going to do it a little differently than last season. As Danny said, I really I really made these guys work too hard last year. We had these guys scout about 200 players, and so I don't want that. I don't want them, staying up to 3 o'clock in the morning. So Neil reminded us that as people were saying draft week that we looked haggard, we had bags under our eyes and stuff. So we're going to take it a little easy on them, but I will promise you that we will have super coverage of draft prospects, not only from Danny and Neil. We'll have special guests that will help extend our coverage. Aaron Current, who is in the chat room now, we've talked to him about doing some SEC type scouting because that's his love, and he loves looking at tape, and he can come in and talk to Danny and Neil on a show from time to time. So we've got a lot of plans in the work. So whatever you would like us to perhaps entertain as an idea, please send them to me at Barroom Network.
Yeah.
Danny?
Yeah, awesome. And also, as usual, every year we always ask for participation. If there's a player you want for us to scout, a particular player, or all that, just hit up either Aldo or hit up myself at dshimon23. I'm sorry, at dshimon56 is my Twitter handle, and then we'll go ahead and just give you a quick rundown of those players if we can there.
There you go. 2-hour show, Danny. I thought we would be done in 90 minutes, so we went about 30 minutes. Yeah,
I talk way too much. I talk way too much.
No, I like the way, there's a basic communication principle is tell people what you're going to say, then say it, and then tell them what you said. And you follow that principle to the T. It's very well done. It really helps with retaining information that you're sharing. So very well done. I really appreciate it. So one other programming note. Besides our regular programming on Sunday, you get the Barfly Tailgate Show. Sunday morning, they'll prep you up for this final regular season game. And then immediately after the game, Bear football. Then the surprises come in because we will be right on top of what is happening at Hallis Hall. We will cover it immediately after there's some news. I'm going to call everybody up. We're going to get all of the Barroom Network experts involved with providing their opinion and analysis of whatever announcements come out of Hallis Hall. So we might have something Sunday night. We'll probably definitely have something Monday. I know we got Greg Gabriel right now scheduled for Monday. If nothing happens on Monday, Greg will at least offer up some opinions about what could happen. Additionally, Greg also wants to talk about some of the changes that the NFL is making with the whole scouting process. Like, for instance, Danny and I talked about a couple of weeks ago how the NFL is no longer doing the weight, the height and weight measurement thing, the weigh-ins at the Senior Bowl. So he's got some more information on things like that he wants to share, which for us draftniks is always fun to listen to. And then throughout the week, we'll be covering what's happening at Hallis Hall, where we're breaking in with any special information. So this is the place to be, or one of the places to be, because we know a lot of you guys really devour up this information. And so we want to make sure that we're on your list of places to visit. Danny, any final words?
Yeah, it's gonna be an active week for sure. I mean, whether it comes out Monday or it comes out Tuesday, it's probably gonna be the last game Matt Nagy coaches this Sunday. So, and like I said, Aldo said right there, the Barroom's gonna be all over it. We'll break in with special coverage and special shows and kind of break it down. So, it's gonna be fun to see who if there's a big structure, a restructuring of the front office. If that's something Aldo just talked about. If Champ Kelly has been promoted to GM, Ryan Pace to executive vice president, and then those two are going to go out and kind of find a new football coach. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And definitely the Barroom is the place to be because we'll be on top of it.
There you go. One other programming note. Again, if you the show that Peggy Kaczynski passed the mic, the show that she did with Sam Rappaport, the NFL executive, is you really should listen to that. And then she did a second one where she interviewed Dorothy Gators, the famous high school basketball coach from Marshall High School in Chicago, won multiple championships, is considered one of the best girls basketball coaches of all time. Peggy interviewed her. She just recently retired, and so that was a really special interview. Both of those are available on demand here on YouTube, and I'll post them on the audio version as well for you. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this edition of Bear Truth. Well, Danny and I will be back with more, but just make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll be alerted on your device whenever we go live with breaking news. All right, Danny, say goodbye.
Bye, guys.
All right.